Well, my week with the Raspberry Pi 4 as my desktop is wrapping up tomorrow morning. So I'm trying to think about some new project ideas for the Raspberry Pi 4. It's a pretty decent little server box. So I'm trying to think about some things I could do with it in the future to make life a little easier around the home, or around the studio, or I guess around the RV. Hello everybody, setting up for Coder Radio, episode 369 here in a few moments. Mr. Dominic is afflicted with the poops, so I don't think he'll be joining us, but Mr. Wes is en route and he and I will do a show together. And in the meantime, since we're starting a little late, I thought we'd chat about Raspberry Pi projects. Now, I'm not just keeping this to the Raspberry Pi 4, but I did just wrap up my review, which I'll cover in LUP tomorrow. So I think there's a couple of obvious use cases that I'm considering, but I'd love to hear your ideas for other uses of the Raspberry Pi. If you'd like to join me in the chat room, irc.geekshed.net, #, I think it's Quadrathorpe? That doesn't sound right. I'll have to ask Wes when he gets here. #, $, tic-tac-toe sign, Jupiter Broadcasting. And join there and let me know what you think. So the obvious one that I'm considering, but I'd like to do something more inventive, is a Kodi Media Center. It's kind of like the Given, but not inspiring. I'm also considering, I'll tell you the other one that's really kind of on my mind is either a Homebridge dedicated appliance or a Home Assistant appliance, or OpenHAB, also considering. So if any of you have any experience with that, I'd love to pick your brain. Zoopy in the chat room says he has a Raspberry Pi Zero W. Cute little things. I was trolling the Raspberry Pi project subreddit, and one thing that kind of caught my idea, although I'm not sure how people are doing it, is essentially configuring a Raspberry Pi, and this would work for like one of the really cheap ones too. Not that they're all pretty cheap, but essentially turning it into a motion sensor using the Motion Eyes OS distribution, which is really caught my attention. So that's something I'm going to be looking more into. Because if you then combine that with something like Home Assistant, you could integrate it with a wider home automation system, like a wider system that like turns lights on and manages heating and does presence awareness that you can then trigger routines and automation around. So that's particularly appealing to me. And it's nice to be able to do it using a Raspberry Pi. With a webcam, I think is how they're doing it. So this Motion iOS is a dedicated Linux distribution that turns a single board computer into a video surveillance system. It's based on Buildroot and has this Motion project as its back end, which is a pixel analysis tool, which works with basically any video for Linux device or any RTSP, RTMP stream, or any kind of moving file that you can give it. It can detect the motion in there. And then it can give that back to the Motion Eye project, which is a web front end that lets you actually view the motion incidents. So it looks really, really super promising, but it also looks really obtuse. However, like so many great things in life, it seems people are trying to run it on the Raspberry Pi. So there could be some possibilities there. And I'll have a little more information about that in Linux Unplugged. That's something that's sort of on my to-do list. Coder Radio. I just got my calendar notification for Coder Radio. Coder Radio coming up, FYI, if you didn't know. You know, I've been wanting a landline recently on my desk. Isn't that weird? I wonder what that's about. I also have questions around some of the voltage options for the Raspberry Pi. I got to do some reading about that. I want to run it off of DC power. No adapters. I want to just run it right off the battery if I can. So I got to look into that. I'm trying to get inspired by something that... We'll see. I'm looking at a bunch... Of course, the project site has a bunch of suggestions. There's that subreddit. Some people are suggesting use Android. I don't know about that. I think I'd rather use Linux. Lots of integrations with Home Assistant. That's nice. A WireGuard router. That's a good suggestion. I like that one. If you've got a suggestion, join us over at irc.geekshed.net, pound Jupiter Broadcasting. Kind of makes me... I get so nostalgic sometimes. Because some of this stuff is, like, it's coming back again. What was it? Z-Wave? I think I played with, like, 100 years ago. And it's still around. But it just feels like some of this stuff comes back around again. Like I'm looking at different smart hubs to integrate with different systems, and they don't quite interconnect, but you can get these systems like Home Assistant or smart things that will make them interconnect. Don't we ever learn, guys? Don't we ever learn? I'm going to do a little, I tweeted about it too, see if I get any Twitter responses. Byte says he has a Raspberry Pi with a Sonoff? What's that? Is it S-O-N-off? Sonoff? Sounds like Sonos, but not. RF bridge. Oh, to get Mosquito working on a 433 megahertz motion sensor. Wow. Akima, what do you use? So Akima in the chat room says he has 2 Raspberry Pis. I'm curious what you use them for. Also, if anybody has an experience using like one of the small Raspberry Pis for like remote audio streaming, the problem is... Like, I got interfaced with a bunch of proprietary stuff, like either AirPlay or Chromecast. And I feel like that's the tricky part with some of those. So if you have any experience there, I'd love to hear it. Because that, I think, could also be a use for because I have a stack of these things. I could, put them all over the place. One for speakers, one's for motion sensors. And I got old webcams, too, I'm not using. I could probably dig them up. I mean, I don't have... Most of them, we burn them out because they run 24/7 at the studio, even when we don't have video going. Which is kind of weird, huh? Now that I think about that. I was looking at... oh my gosh. You know what? I might just play this for you. It's so ridiculous. So I'm going to play this clip, because this is ridiculous. This is so classic. Let me see, do I have, see if I have screen capture. Oh, down periscope. Oh, I almost tipped over my big old cup of show water. That was my down periscope. Almost a tragedy there. Hello, chat room. Let's bring the chat room up. Let's get them up on screen. Hello, chat room. Hi there. You're up on the live stream now. Nice to have you. Oh, we have a little capture issue I gotta resolve. Licorice play here. Fascinating. Most illogical. I believe the issue is at the source, Captain. Alright, I gotta do a little reconfigure here on the old source then. Thank you, Mr. Spock. There's no need to thank me, Captain. It is my job. Wow. Jeez, don't get lippy, Spock. Alright. I rebooted some stuff here, and so of course you gotta reset everything up, right? I'll show you what it looks like, actually, if you want to see it. It's kind of funny, if you're watching the video version. Really down on our current state of technology. You know, smartphones are addictive, social media is horrible, applications like Electron apps are so bloated, everything is ruined, and we forget just how damn far we've come. And so I do sometimes like to reflect a little bit. So what I'm going to do is I'll play this clip because I get nostalgic. And then I would encourage you to join us over in our chat room and tell me what you use a Raspberry Pi for. Here's my situation. Perhaps you can offer me some advice. I've got the new Raspberry Pi 4 that just wrapped up as my desktop for a week, and now I want to put it into service as something around the studio or around the RV/house that could make life better. Maybe a speaker, maybe a home hub. I'd like to hear what you've done. irc.geekshed.net. Also, I've got older Raspberry Pis that I'm not really doing anything with that also would be good candidates. So it doesn't have to be just the Pi 4. Could be anything. So here's an old Computer Chronicles from 1989 talking about portable computing. I love this one. Wow, we've come a long way.
This is the original portable computer, the good old Osborne 1, a 5-inch screen, 2 floppy disk drives, and yes, it is portable. It's got a handle and 25 pounds underneath it. Portable computers have come a long way since the old Osborne. Smaller, lighter, readable LCD screens, battery power, 40 megabyte hard drives, even 386 chips. Woo! Today we take a look at the new generation of portable laptop computers on this edition of the Computer Chronicles.
So it's so funny, right? Because the thing that's so great about this show is it was at a point in history where they could look back at where they had been and be like, look how quaint these were. And now we're at a point in history where we look back at this show and we go, look how quaint this was. It's one of the things I love about technology and why I feel like I'll follow it my entire life.
The Computer Chronicles is made possible in part by McGraw-Hill, publishers of Byte Magazine.
It's like people that need to compute on the go.
Oh, I didn't know.
And
Sorry,
we also
there
have
you
the
go.
AC powered
Here's
units that people use that need to be able to compute with power where they end up.
Mm-hmm.
You know, in the office is powerful. You get to a hotel, you have AC there. You go to a meeting, you have AC there.
Like, what are people looking for in laptops?
Well, we find that there are two classes of laptops that the battery powered units sell to that kind of market, where the AC ones have that.
Well, let's just take the.
So there, you see. Okay, so there you go. There's the terminal. I wanted you to hear that. The AC ones. The AC ones. Isn't that an interesting term?
Like the portable battery-powered one. What are people looking for in terms of features?
They need the screen to be good, the battery life, of course, like Kevin says. We like to put as many ports as possible across them so that they are self-contained enough.
Let's talk about that machine in particular, Keith, while you're going into it. This is your T1600.
Right.
And tell us what's in it and give us a little walkthrough.
Well, this is equivalent to an IBM AT. This is a 12 megahertz 286. It's got a 287 socket. It's got a 20 megabyte hard drive, a 3.5-inch floppy. This is an EGA compatible screen. It's got 16 grayscales. It's a backlit Super Twist LCD. The keyboard is equivalent to an IBM 101 keyboard. It goes all the way up to F12. Mm-hmm. On the back here, you've got all your standard ports. There's external video for an EGA monitor, 2 serial ports.
Okay.
Parallel external.
So now look at this sucker and think about our discussion we were having in the chat room about Raspberry Pi 4 and Raspberry Pis. And look at this thing. I mean, think about this. How far we have come. Look at the size of those ports.
Floppy in case you need to convert. It's also got a space here for a modem, which would be this kind of modem here. And then on the side, there's a little door that opens and we have one of our Toshiba slots.
How great is that?
This other kind of modem here.
That modem, which is larger than an entire Raspberry Pi.
We've also got a
what is that
Ethernet board now.
Ooh,
This is
Ethernet board. I want that one.
It's got both the thin and the thick cable.
There's not actually an RJ45 port on there. Do you notice that? Oh, guys, remember when Ethernet wasn't RJ45? Yeah, neither do I.
Ethernet. We also have an expansion chassis card that goes into that slot. So we offer expandability for those that need it, and then, of course, all the standard
No, in the
ports, too.
expansion chassis, what does that go to? It goes to another box that you set
There's
alongside
another box
your
that holds 5 IBM-style cards.
Okay, those are all available now?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, over Thunderbolt.
What's the battery story on this one?
This one actually comes with 2 batteries.
Whoa!
They're up here in the front. They just snap out like this.
Mm-hmm. And
2
how
batteries.
much life on a battery?
It's hard to say. There's a bunch
You know, oh, you really just can't pin it down.
of battery-saving features. The hard drive spins itself down. The backlight spins down. The processor can go into a coma if you're not using it.
Hey,
So if I walk on the plane with those 2 batteries, how far do I go?
that whole processor goes into a coma thing didn't really stick around, did it? I guess they didn't really play well.
You can get up to 5 hours.
Whoa! Whoa, that's better than that's better than some of my current machines.
It just depends on if you let the battery-saving features save you those batteries.
Kevin, let's turn to your Zenith Turbo
Good one.
Splinter, I guess. Tell us about what the unique features are. in
Ooh,
that
look at the
machine.
screen on that
This
one.
one we look at as a complete desktop replacement in the 386 marketplace, and
We're talking 386 here. That was a 286
Yes.
Keith's machine. Okay.
And-
Oh shit! Yeah, that other one's only a 286. So the other thing you'll notice too about these is they have these huge adjustment dials on the side of the screens that are used for adjusting contrast and whatnot.
and with the extension that, in addition to the desktop features like removable keyboard,
Oh,
and all
removable
the ports
keyboard.
and full complement of memory, we have
Actually, kind of like everything about this. So just to recap, their portables supported expansion cards. Yes, please. All right. They supported a breakout box that you could have up to 5 additional cards. Yes, please. Now, this particular unit maybe supports those things, we don't know yet, but also has a detachable keyboard. Why doesn't anybody attempt to make something kind of like this? Only with a super thin screen now, because you could. You could make this, and you could probably make it half the size easy. And you could probably even make it, you could probably go beyond there. But let's say that size and thinness and weight wasn't their top priority, but expandability and modularity was their top priority. You'd end up with something like this. And I think this is fascinating right here. This is where the industry started. And now, and then it seems over the decades, we've ended up with these single aluminum milled machines. And it's so far away. Like, you can see the screws. You can see the seams. You can see where that keyboard comes together. Look at that. There's a huge frickin' gap at the top of the screen there. Do you guys see that big black gap along the top of the screen? And then, let's not even mention that bezel. That huge bezel around that LCD screen.
We have a tremendously viewable fluorescent screen here.
Tremendously viewable fluorescent screen. This guy can spin anything.
But the key here is that we strongly believe that the battery life issue is a key issue to the laptop, and this one actually runs at 3 hours. We tend not to quote ranges. We try to quote that conservative test, and we shoot for a 3 hour minimum on all of our
You've got an AC
portables.
right now, though, huh?
Yes, I could pull it, and the system will still stay up.
Unbelievable.
And so
Whoa, that thing behind it, which I thought might have been a printer or some sort of portable scanner, was the power supply.
if we tape for 3 hours, it's still up.
You know, one of the things, Kevin, that your machine has is what they call white paper white display.
Page white, right?
Page white, okay. Can you tell us the difference between all these displays? We've got a page white display here.
Paperwhite. I wonder if that's where Bezos got the idea. Maybe he was, because it's legal in Washington. Maybe he's smoking an old bowl and watching some old Computer Chronics, and he's thinking to himself, hey, you know what? That's not a bad product name there. Thanks, old Gary. Gary's not going to mind.
Page white, right?
Page white, okay. Your machine has what they call white paper white display.
Page white.
Paperwhite display. 1989. Gary Kindle? Gary Cadall? Jeez, never mind.
One of the things, Kevin, that your machine has is what they call white paper white display.
Page white, right?
Page white, okay. Can you tell us the difference between all these displays? We've got a page white display here. There's something blue and white here.
Sure. Page white is a technology that's really built on a couple of things. First, the LCD panel is a special compensating layered LCD. That's what gets you the black and white characteristic. But in order to get a very bright white, you need a really good backlight, and we use a fluorescent backlight in this particular system. And a fluorescent backlight that's very high efficiency and still runs off a battery is one of the things that's very important. We have an excellent diffuser as part of this display system as well that makes the backlight very even, so that you just don't spot the tubes.
Now, what are the other technologies that are being used right now?
Real popular is electroluminescent and also the gas plasma. They tend to, those technologies are really AC driven though.
Plasma on a frickin' laptop.
The gas plasma. They tend to, those technologies are really AC driven though. Getting a 20-to-1 contrast ratio really restricts yourself to LCD technology, and getting one to run under battery is a tough thing to do, and we really tried to work very hard on 5 areas of the technology in the display.
Now, one of the things that is bothersome to me on a laptop or portable like this, with this kind of display, is you seem to lose the mouse form just like you lose the cursor all the time. Is that going to be a constant problem in these displays?
Well, I think you can spot it with here, as with this ledge here. I have a full complement of ports in this very small.
What's so great about Gary? He's very humble. You should look him up. Gary Kidall, Computer Chronicles. Go read his Wikipedia page. So he really knows his shit. And he's also rich as fuck and rich as hell, and has all of these things before they're released to the market. He bought them, tried them, had experience, and that's how he informed what seemed to be rather casual questions that he asked. Gary passed on, but he was pivotal in the early days of the computer industry, so he was a huge get for the Computer Chronicles. And when he's asking that question, it's because he's used it and he's lost the mouse on the screen before. Go look him up, Gary Kidall, Kildall.
Mouse form, just like you lose the cursor all the time. Is that going to be a constant problem in these displays?
Well, I think you can spot it with here, as with this ledge here. I have a full complement of ports in this very small footprint here. But because of this ledge, I can keep the mouse attached actually even when I travel. And if you notice,
so it's a fully removable mouse that you tuck away inside the portable.
Microsoft Windows and Excel here, and the spotting of the cursor is something that does move quite well across the screen. A little trouble seeing.
Okay, we have a little bit of time left, Keith, and I want you to tell us a little bit about the 5200. That's your highest end machine, isn't it?
Right, the 5200 is our 20 megahertz 386. It comes with either a 100 megabyte hard drive or a 40.
Okay, what? Anybody have the Raspberry Pi 4 specs super handy real quick? I'm going to see if I can look those up because that is, okay. We got to, hold on a second. We got to look this up. Raspberry Pi 4. We got to look at this here real quick. So the $35 computer has what? Gigabit Ethernet, a gig, 2 gigs, or 4 gigabytes of RAM. But the number that I think is the most impressive, there's tech specs. The number that's going to be the most impressive, and I think it's like what, 1.2 gigahertz, but I'm not positive. Double checking tech specs. Yeah, okay. So it's a 64-bit, I'm not an old man, I promise, with 1.5 gigahertz quad-core processor. So it has my particular Raspberry Pi 4, just to keep things simple, is a 4 gigs of RAM, 64-bit, 1.5 gigahertz system. Now let's listen to this back and get the specs on this particular portable.
And I want you to tell us a little bit about the 5200. That's your highest end machine, isn't it?
Right, the 5200 is our 20 megahertz 386. It comes with either a 100 megabyte hard drive or a 40.
Okay, so 20 megahertz, 386, but he hasn't said RAM yet.
This is a VGA compatible 16 grayscale gas plasma display.
Oh, plasma!
This display does come off, so you can set a monitor above it and be sleek on your desktop. It's a 101 compatible keyboard. Comes with 2 megabytes. It's now expandable up to 14 megabytes using
Okay, so I think that when he's that megabytes, is that RAM?
the new 4 megabit RAM chips that
Yeah, so okay, so let's walk through this.
it's now expandable
Okay.
sleek on your desktop. It's a 101 compatible keyboard. Comes with 2 megabytes. It's now expandable up to 14 megabytes using the new 4 megabit RAM chips that we just announced.
So in 1992, I was around 92, 93, I was extremely proud to have 16 megabytes of RAM. So that's not bad since this is 89 and it's a portable and that was on a desktop.
It's also replaces a desktop in that it's got 2 slots back here. This panel comes off. There's a full-length 16-bit slot and a half-length 8-bit slot, or this bottom space can be occupied by one of our Toshiba cards like the Ethernet or this modem that's in here now.
They're really focused on replacing the desktop, aren't they? In their mind, there's not a market for a desktop and a portable. Only an animal would have a desktop and a portable.
This is an AC only machine.
This is AC only.
Okay.
Okay. Real quick, what's the prices here on these 3 machines we've seen, Keith?
This one's list price at $49.99. This one goes for $95 or $11 grand,
Okay.
depending on the drive.
Kevin?
This is $79.99 without modem, 2 megabytes, 40 megabyte hard disk, and $84.99 with a...
Gentlemen, thank you. We're going to be talking more about laptops in just a minute. Pretty much laptops have been in the PC domain with very few exception. No real Macintosh laptop, though we know Macintosh is going to come out with a laptop very soon. We sent Wendy Woods out to try to find out what's going to be inside that new Mac laptop.
According to journalists, the laptop, due to be introduced at Macworld in Boston
They're not
in
gonna call it a
August,
laptop.
will have several trailblazing features. A battery capable of operating for 12 hours between charges, a lightweight hard disk, and a revolutionary new screen.
I think the most prominent feature of it would be the active matrix screen. Which
Man, some things never change, huh? Look at this. Frickin' Apple rumors in 1989.
is a new technology to portable computers that really creates a much finer screen, better contrast, and for the environment that's very graphics-based, like the Macintosh, it's really much more preferable and a good step forward. But there are certain problems with that technology, that it's new, the production yields on active matrix screens is relatively low, and it's expensive.
But why the long wait?
Wow.
The basic reason why they waited so long is because
Hold on, I have to re-enjoy this for a moment. This is so formulaic, and this cut so unnecessary, and the voiceover so basic. I just have to see it again.
But why the long wait?
the basic reason why they
Oh, God, I want that. Oh, I want that in a clip. If anybody's recording the stream, I'm going to play it again, and I beg of you to send that to me.
and it's expensive.
But why the long wait?
I need that in my life. I need that. I need that.
The basic reason why they waited so long is because they chose a path that involved new technologies and lots of custom design in the chips, in the active matrix screen, in getting a 12-hour battery life.
Bullshit.
So there are several factors there that will make it a great machine in many ways.
Drawbacks include the machine's weight, an estimated 15 pounds, and its price, in the area of $6,500. But insiders expect it to be a popular and important new addition to the Macintosh line.
It's a necessary device so that we can travel with our Macs. Businesses are going to love it. It's going to be yet another product that's going to sell very quickly and very profitably for Apple. Their third product in a row on the Mac SE30, the Mac 2 CX, and now a transportable.
God, this is quaint. This is quaint. And yeah, I heard him say transportable. Oh boy, I'm glad that didn't stick.
Row on the Mac SE30, the Mac 2 CX, and now a transportable. And it's going to put Apple back in the mainstream and gain a lot of market share for them.
Oh yeah, this is going to make all the difference. What could go wrong?
In San Francisco for the Computer Chronicles, I'm Wendy Woods.
Thanks, Wendy. Yeah, okay. Yeah. Show us what's up. Now it's time for the big boys. The suits are in the house.
Joining us in the studio now is Mac McLaughlin. Mac is Director of Western Operations for Compaq. Next.
Look at these two sons of bitches. Look at this. And these two are competitors, and you can tell. You see how the guy on the right is leaning away, but yet he's got that fake, insincere smile. This is the big money.
Next to Mac, Jim Bartlett, Manager of Strategic Marketing for NEC. Gary?
All right, so we got Compaq and NEC in the house.
Operations for Compaq. Next to Mac, Jim Bartlett, Manager of Strategic Marketing for NEC. Gary?
Mac, I understand that this is Compaq's first portable. Is that correct?
No, this is our first laptop.
First laptop,
portable.
okay.
Or battery operated, really.
Or battery operated.
Okay.
Right. Thank you, Director of Western Operations, Mac. Wow, look at this good old boy. What a day. Anyways, he continues on.
Get all the adjectives in there.
You got it. Okay.
Battery-operated laptop. Why did Compaq wait this long to get into this particular segment of the market?
Well, the technology, in our opinion, was not ready for us to be able to provide a full-function laptop computer.
This is such a great answer. When you're a slow big company and the upstarts can kick your ass, but you can sit back and be like, well, it just wasn't ready for our level of quality.
And in particular, what kind of technology?
Primarily the screen. We did a lot of testing with the market to find out what was an acceptable level, and the VGA monitor was really what was seen as an acceptable level screen.
Can you tell us a little bit about this machine?
You bet. As I mentioned, it does have a VGA monitor. It's a 10-inch diagonal screen. And in addition to the VGA capability of the screen, it also will accept EGA or CGA written software.
And also, do you have a connection on the back then that would go to a normal VGA monitor?
Yes, indeed. In fact, you can plug in either a CGA, EGA, or a VGA monitor as well.
CGA, huh?
The keyboard also is easily removed from the top of the unit.
Look at that.
And we find that, especially on an airplane, when you try to put a laptop on the tray, that sometimes it's nice to be able to take the keyboard off and put it in your lap.
No, it's not. No, it's not at all.
To use that.
What else is in here, Mac?
Well, the battery fits right in the front of the unit. I brought an extra battery along with me so you could see that. And it uses a 3.5-inch 1.4 megabyte floppy drive.
The new 3.5-inch.
And it comes with either a 20 or a 40 megabyte hard drive.
Shit.
Uses the C286 microprocessor that runs at 12 megahertz.
Right.
So it's
I memorized this just before I got here.
very high performance system.
Okay, and what kind of time do you get on the let's say normal usage in the?
Well, it's a minimum
batteries?
of 3 hours in the battery.
Okay.
Normal usage depends on whether or not you're using a graphics-intensive software package or whether it's text.
And you can carry on.
Ingram in the chat room points out this is likely where they started measuring screens by the diagonal, and I bet you're right. That's probably it right here.
On an extra battery pack.
Carry an extra
and just
battery pack
slip it in
usually
there.
and just slip it in.
Okay, what's in the back of the machine, Mac? How can we
Come
get
on,
into
Mac.
this thing?
Okay, glad you asked. On the back of the unit, there is a port for a parallel for a printer. Serial port, a port to plug into the VGA, as we talked about before, for an external monitor. And in addition to that, it has the ability to plug in the full-size 101 keyboard.
It's funny that everybody calls it the 101 keyboard, right? That's an IBM thing.
So that if you wanted to use a full-size keyboard, you
Now,
could.
you've got a couple of interesting connectors over here. Look like telco. Does it have a built-in modem then? Is that
That's
part of
correct. It does have a built-in modem that plugs in on the side, and in addition to that, it has an AC adapter port on this side of it.
What's the big fat one?
You notice this guy keeps putting his finger up, like he wants to tell them, oh, one more thing. Like he wants to interrupt them. I'll show you.
Like
If you wanted to use a full-size keyboard, you
Now, you've
could.
got a
See how right there, that face and that finger, ooh, he's basically telling the people that run this show, wait for me to finish. And their job is to move the damn show forward. So that, I really don't like that. And he does it again.
A couple of interesting connectors over here. Look like telco. Does it have a built-in modem then? Is that
That's
part of
correct. It does have a built-in modem that plugs in on the side, and in addition to that, it has an AC adapter port on this side of it.
What's the big fat one?
He almost did it again, but he stopped. He retracted. The vibe is so different than the earlier guys. It's really something.
One on the right there.
Well, this is what we think is one of the most important features of the unit. This plugs into the docking port, so you can actually take your laptop, plug it into a docking port, and then use it as an office computer in your office. The docking port then has a recharger built into it, so it recharges the battery, and also has 2 slots in it, so that you can use 2 additional slots for any other.
And is
boards
this
that you want to
removable
use.
then, so you can then use?
Well, this can be closed down,
Oh, I see.
and
It's
then of
closed
course
down.
you would use your color monitor along with your 101 keyboard when in the office. You can upload the software you've been working on or the programs you've been working on, and then download it when you want to take it home at night.
Jim, you've got a very different approach here with the NEC Ultralight, very small. Tell us what your approach is to a laptop.
Okay, Stuart. Well, we've taken several approaches to laptops and have quite a range, but this product is the first in this class anyway, we feel. It's 4.4 pounds.
Wow, look how frickin' sleek this thing is. This guy knows he's got something hot, too. Look at that face.
So it's about the size of a PC magazine.
Look at this thing. This guy knows he's got it.
And it can fit into any briefcase without displacing any of your important work papers. So now we have a machine that people can throw in the briefcase and not have to think consciously, am I going to need it or am I not going to need it when I get to the other end of my trip?
Jim, what's inside it? What are the components we're doing?
Oh, this is based on a V30 processor running at 10 megahertz.
So it's slower, but this is a significant strategy difference. Compaq went for this bulky thing that you could hook up and make it a whole desktop, and this is a supplement to your existing desktop. NEC here is rolling out the strategy of today.
It's got about the same horsepower as an 8 megahertz 286 machine as far as processing power.
Okay.
It has 640K of RAM. It has a backlit display that does both text and graphics.
Right. Now the catch or the benefit, depending on how you look at it, is no drives, right?
Well, there's no floppy drive inside the machine. There's a separate floppy drive that can be plugged into the expansion port on the back, but we do have a silicon hard disk, which is one of the other very unique things that we did in this machine. It's a 2 megabyte silicon hard disk, and it's differentiated from what we've talked about in the past in the RAM disks, in that it actually has the same physical attributes from a piece of software looking at it. Looks like a physical hard disk.
Does it retain the data then after the power goes down?
Right. It's an integral system that has silicon file chips with a battery to hold them, hold the information. Right. It's either 1 megabyte or 2 megabyte for the hard disk. Then the other thing we've done is provided ROM cards
cost of portability.
and RAM cards that can go into this slot on the side.
Look at this early PCMCA.
I have one card in here in the side, and there's an additional one I have here. So you can buy standard
application.
packages, Lotus 1, 2, 3, WordPerfect 5.0, those kinds of things on these cards, and install that in your ROM card slot, in addition to whatever you store on the silicon hard disk.
Now, did you say you also have a RAM card? Is that right?
Right. This is a RAM card in the slot right here.
And that gives you how much storage there?
This particular one is 256K. I have Procom on this card.
And battery life, given that you don't have to worry about mechanical drives.
Yeah, it's 2 hours of life on this product. And
that's not bad.
We found is that over 50%, about 60% of the people in the market research that we have done through an independent source indicate that 1 to 2 hours is what they use daily. Now, there are going to be some people who require more. And
That
we're working
plane
to,
trip across the country.
You know, the thing is this is legitimately a compelling product, and you can see the guy next to him is like, oh shit.
Actually, it's interesting, 87% of all domestic flights, 2 hours of battery life is enough.
Real quick, just a few seconds left. Give me prices on these two machines, Mac.
With a 20 megabyte hard file, it's
20 megabytes versus 2.
Real quick, just a few seconds left. Give me prices on these two machines, Mac.
with a 20 megabyte hard file, it's $53.99.
Hard file, is it?
And with the 40 megabyte, it's $59.99.
And the ultralight
is $29.99 with a 1 megabyte silicon hard disk, and with 2 megabyte hard disk, it's $36.99.
Great, thank you.
This has a 2400 baud modem built in as well.
In just a minute,
I gotta slip that in. Oh, that's him hitting his talking point, and Stuart's not so happy about it.
$36.99.
Great, thank you.
This has a 2400 baud modem built in as well.
In just a minute, we'll take.
That might be my favorite part, just as a host. That's great. So, do you have any ideas on what I should use my Raspberry Pi? Jeez, boy, I feel like I got a supercomputer now. Holy smokes. Oh, they got one more unit I kind of want to show you guys. All right, I was going to wrap it up here, but this is too good. All right, we got to see this. This is called the cellular laptop. I remember this. I've seen this one before. This is great.
We'll take a look at a laptop that has a built-in cellular modem. Stay with us.
What? What?
Joining us in the studio now is Mike Morris. Mike is Regional Sales Manager with ITC. Next to Mike, we have Bill Howard, Executive Editor with PC Magazine.
Mike, we've got a device sitting on the table here, and I'm not sure whether it's a telephone or a computer.
Computer with an antenna.
Well, it's a little bit of both.
Okay, what is it?
Intelligence Technology has developed a truly unique product in that we have merged a 286 laptop computer with a cellular telephone. In addition to that, we have developed a cellular error-correcting modem. So for the first time in the industry, we are providing error-free data transmission.
So I could have this with me in my car anywhere, call up a database, call up my home computer, an online service.
That's correct. Also provided with the unit is a 12-volt car adapter, so you can plug in through there.
That's my man right there. That's my man. Hey, you know what? A laptop with a cellular modem going down the road, what could go wrong?
Provided with the unit is a 12-volt car adapter, so you can plug in through there.
Can you prove this thing works?
Absolutely.
Go ahead.
Let me just place a call to the host.
Look at that fucking beast.
And there's no cables up your sleeve here, right?
Oh my God.
That's correct.
Okay, we're really using that antenna. Tell us what you're doing as you do it, Mike.
Okay. I'm just dialing in my local number to the host.
Sure you are. Put it up there on that screen.
Which is where? Where are you calling?
That's in Dallas.
You're calling Texas.
That's
okay.
correct.
Listen to that. How great is this?
And we use Mirror 2, the communication software with this.
This
So
is
you've
so
got
good.
a phone and modem in there. I mean, you can actually carry on a voice conversation
That's
too
correct.
through this.
That's correct. Comes standard with the handset, which is included with the product. Then you can do hands-free voice with the built-in speakerphone.
Now, what
That
would
is
be
correct.
a primary application for this? Does a salesman use it? Or
Well,
just
it would be
do this?
big in the insurance industry, your major defense contractors, real estate industry, your municipalities. That's just to name a few.
You
Now,
online here?
yes, I have access to my host in Dallas now. I'm just entering my password, and I have successfully connected by way of cellular into the host in Dallas. And again, we are totally free of any hardwire landline.
Right. Now, you running on AC here?
Right now we are, but you do have
could run on
battery
battery.
power. That's correct.
Okay.
You've got about 1 hour battery life.
And you could then be just downloading files or doing anything you normally do.
That's
with that.
correct.
What about the cost of that thing and the weight of it, Mike?
Okay, the weight is 19 pounds, so it's pound for pound the same weight as the Toshiba 3200. We have added a few additional things, batteries, telephone. The weight on it is $75.95.
$75.95.
Wait on
The weight on, that's the weight, all right.
The price is $75.95.
Bill,
Suggest
people are
we-
always asking me, I want to buy a laptop, what should I buy? We've seen a whole bunch of examples in this show. What's the answer to that question? Is it possible to answer that question?
Among the better known vendors, probably most every machine they make is good quality and I'd say worth buying. We have some we like a little more than others. Certainly Zenith, Toshiba, and NEC are the market leaders, and I think they're all quality products. We're also very much impressed with the new Compaq SLT. Compaq's first step into battery power is a very good one. Impressed by their power saving. Also some smaller names you may not have heard of. Mitsuba has a nice 286 machine we like a lot. Data World and a few others as well. Also in the low end, Tandy 1400 is a nice machine also.
And what should someone expect to pay? We've heard a number of prices here, but in reality, they're probably all discounted somewhat.
Sure. Well, we have a joke back at the office that God invented Protestants because someone has to pay retail. But but even with laptops, you should always bargain carefully. I think for a base PC level machine, 8088 or 8086 processor, about $1,500 to $2,000 with a floppy drive, $2,500 with a hard disk. Your 286 or AT class machine typically about $3,500 with a 20 meg hard drive, and your 386 would be about $4,500 to $5,000 in terms of street price, and that's your base. You'll go up a little bit from there as you add accessories and memory.
Is this a good time to buy? People who are saying, well, but tomorrow another thing is going to come out, some new piece of technology.
It's always going to get cheaper as if you wait. In the meantime, you've lost the utility of having the machine now for the next 6 months or so. You certainly will see some changes in the next 6 months in terms of less weight, some reduced price, and also some better display technology.
If you want one, buy it.
Exactly.
Gentlemen, thank you very much. That's all the time we have for our look at the new generation of laptops. We'll be back in just a minute with this week's computer news.
Okay, I want to know, out of the laptops we've seen now, which would you end up with? And would you pick, okay, serious question. Would you choose any of those over a Raspberry Pi? Maybe for nostalgia reasons? Perhaps? I'm curious. So, Mr. West is almost here. He's coming up from Seattle. Join us in the chat room, irc.geekshed.net. Coda Radio episode 369, just a moment away. And I guess we'll finish up the random access. Might as well now. I mean, we're like done now.
In the random access file this week, Microsoft says it will release a new version of DOS 4.0 that will be faster and require less memory. The company also said it's coming out later this year with version 1.2 of OS2, featuring a more powerful file manager. There's also a special version of OS2 being designed for the Intel 386 processor. Ashton Tate has announced a new file recovery program specifically for DBase 3, 3+, and 4. The program restores the full file with embedded characters, shifted data, and headers. And Ashton Tate says it wants you if you're an independent programmer or writer of software books. The company says it's going all out to find new software tools, utilities, and extension products for the DBase environment. Novell has announced a new version of its NetWare software called Network 386 version 3.0. It can support up to 250 users on one server. It also features a simplified installation procedure and dynamic resource configuration, which automatically allocates memory for caches and buffers. Apple has announced new system software for the Apple IIgs. It's the first 16-bit operating system for the 2GS, and it will enable the high-end Apple II to run on an AppleTalk network. Well, it wasn't a computer show, but it was hard to tell. At the National Association of Broadcasters convention, computers were everywhere, as the new buzzwords were desktop video publishing. Symbolics showed off a new version of its video graphics system using a Macintosh 2. Net result, a 50% cut in cost. Studio Spectrum introduced a new Amiga-based graphics system, complete with Amiga 2000, Genlock, and digitized camera, all for $10,000. Sony demonstrated the world's first real-time three-dimensional graphics system for television. The system uses 8 Intel 286 processors working in parallel. Since operations are in real time, there is no need to learn special programming commands. IBM is getting into the intelligent phone business with a new switchboard that identifies the person calling you on a small LCD attached to the phone. Businesses like the idea since the phone signal can automatically trigger a computer to call up a customer's record while the phone is still ringing. Finally, Microsoft Chairman Bill Gates spoke to the Boston Computer Society last week. He said Steve Jobs' next computer is nice, but won't have an impact on the marketplace. And as for the problems that rival Lotus, he suggested Lotus chief Jim Manzi buy a C manual and learn how to program. That's it for this week's Chronicles. We'll see you next time.
The Computer Chronicles is made possible in part by McGraw-Hill, publishers of Byte Magazine, and BIX, the Byte Information Exchange. In print and online, Byte and BIX serve computer professionals worldwide with detailed information on new hardware, software, and technologies.
For a transcript of this week's Computer Chronicles,
that was fun.
Send $4.
I feel like now I shouldn't complain about the Raspberry Pi as a desktop. That was where I was going with all of this. It's not good enough. It's not good enough. Could you imagine today how that... I mean, somebody still got that, right? Somebody still got that hardware. Man, it just makes me think about like the Dell machines that we've got now. Totally different. Do I have... let me see real quick. Hold on. While we're waiting for Mr. Payne, I might just check one more thing. Also, I'm still looking for your Raspberry Pi 4 suggestions. irc.geekshed.net # Jupiter Broadcasting. I think Computer Chronicles is public access for the most part. I thought I had a review of a Dell. I'll play my review of this Dell. So this is sort of like an iMac alternative. Let me, here, I'll set you up. This is going to have to be full screen, so I'll have to actually get audio for this shot. That'd be good. All right, here you go. So, now, just as a comparison, here is a more modern computer, right? Which I think is an interesting little juxtaposition.
Well, this is the starting configuration of the iMac Pro, and we're going to price it at just $49.99.
Wait, what? That's the starting price? $5,000? $5,000! Draft, did you hear that?
And it's going to be available in December.
December? I feel like we can do better than that. This is Dell's 5720 Precision Workstation, and it's an all-in-one that truly earns the title workstation. It has Xeon CPUs at 3.8 GHz that turbo boost up to 4 GHz, 64 gigabytes of RAM, a video card that can go up to 8 gigabytes of video memory, a 4K high-resolution screen, and 3 screaming fast hard drives. In fact, this one is currently equipped with an NVMe drive that's crazy fast and a standard spinning terabyte drive. It really all starts with the 4K screen. I mean, the thing is gorgeous. It's 27 inches and it's a touchscreen depending on how you configure it. Something that might not be obvious at first is the thing's on an articulating arm. It can actually come down flat and you can use it like a table, which makes the touchscreen even more handy. What's truly remarkable about this unit though is its 6-speaker array. With integrated subwoofer, it sounds great and it really accentuates the mids, which is great for gaming, dialogue, and a lot of music. This unit comes with Ubuntu 16.04. You can also get it configured with Windows 10, but I know what you're really thinking. With Xeon processors and tons of RAM and PCIe storage, this thing's a monster and you can configure it in so many different ways that the starting price is below $2,000. This, as configured, is somewhere around $3,600, which is still cheaper than the starting price of the iMac Pro. I would seriously consider this if your workload doesn't require macOS or Final Cut and you want a crazy, well-performant machine that's an all-in-one. This checks the boxes. Anyone who has a task that requires a lot of compute power or high disk I/O and you really want no fuss, great screen, good graphics, and a system that's going to last you years, that's the use case for this computer. Now, if you don't need Xeon processors and ECC RAM, consider looking at the XPS line. I decided to put this through some high-end video editing. I took some 4K footage, 60 frames per second, H.264, and loaded it on this machine. If you're watching the video in the background, it's just playing back raw off the internal storage, and it drops a few frames. This is not a ding on this computer, this is just actually a problem on Linux. It doesn't matter how much hardware you throw at this, you have to have hardware accelerated video decoding. Good news is the CPU in this rig supports hardware accelerated video decoding, so applications like MPV and future versions of Ubuntu will support hardware acceleration right off the ISO. I decided to put this thing through its paces with a 4K video test, and here's my results. almost impossible to convey what a monster this thing is in terms of performance. So I'm going to link in the more information box below comparison links on openbenchmark.org where you can run the same tests I ran against this rig and compare them to your machine and see what the performance delta would be. I'd like to know what you think of that idea for future reviews of linking comparison to openbenchmark.org links so you can always see what the delta would be between your own machine and decide if it's a good value for you to make the upgrade. Just give me the love in the comments if you like that idea. Hit the thumbs up for more reviews to give me an indication if you like these kinds of videos. That's my quick look at Dell's Precision 5120 all-in-one workstation. For a more in-depth review and to hear more about some of my workloads, tune into Linux Unplugged.
All right, so there you go. There's a little bit of a contrast, huh? A little bit of different production, a little bit of different machinery. Boy, times have changed. Mr. Payne is in studio. He's right now getting ready. Oh yeah, you gotta have the. So that shot. Let's see. So where's the Skycam? So. There you have it. Code Radio. Here, I'll get out of your way. Hello, Mr. Payne. Hello. We were just we were having a little coder
hanging it out
pre-dance party, talking about different projects for the Raspberry Pi, putting a Raspberry Pi 4 or other Raspberry Pis into long-term production.
Yeah, right. We're switching.
Got a few ideas.
Everything to Raspberry Pi.
I got a few ideas. So, well, because it's long. Man, that's why here it's long. I mean, look at it. You got an underscore in it, brah. So I mean, like, what do you want me to do with that? All right, here I'm attempt. I'm gonna attempt right now.
You're so generous.
There you go. Just for you, Nate. Just for you, man. I did that for you. All right. I'm gonna get the hell out of the way. It's time for Wes to take over. Stand by, chat room. I decided to go for a dance vibe today.
Dance vibe.
Yeah, dance vibe. What do you think?
Oh, it's nice.
Yeah, it's just a whole track. I don't know why, but why do you suppose I like listening to everything louder than everybody else? I feel like I don't. Check 1 2 2 2 2 2 2 2. I wish it was a touchscreen right here.
Wouldn't that be nice?
Welcome to the JB Rave. Oh yeah, the JB Rave. Yeah, I'm coming in at negative 15. Look at that. Okay, you talk for a second. Just talk for a second.
Well, hello.
Yeah, we're coming in about the same.
Yeah.
Okay, that's good enough. But it's really low.
These dynamic microphones, baby.
Yeah. 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 As long as the chat room's happy, I'm happy.
Yeah, we're doing all right over here, though, so that's good. That's good. Woo! I pulled a Chris last night and did not get nearly enough sleep for some reason.
Yeah, it happens, man. It happens.
Does.
I had this weird thing where I spent a good portion of the day outside, but I wasn't very physically active because I was watching the kids swim and I was like standing on the shore, like being parental.
Oh, yeah.
And I had like my lowest heart rate dip of the year that night, not last night, but the night before. And I'm wondering, that's what I'm going for, is I'm trying to get my heart rate down while I sleep. Because some nights it's like in the 80s while I'm sleeping, which should be like when I'm working out. Right? So.
And yeah, that is high.
I gotta get it down.
You gotta get less sleep stress. Sleep stress. Ow! Yeah.
I'm very excited though because it's just a beautiful time of year here in Washington. And so even when like work is a little crummy or there's a lot we're grinding through or things are super busy, like right now we're working on a project that's just kind of stressful. It's so gorgeous outside.
Right.
Half hour away,
right?
And you can just be in the most incredible stuff, or just even the local town stuff. So I try to stay positive. But I tell you, I instinctually like try to work really hard during the summer because there's so much extra daylight, and I think sometimes it brings on additional stress.
Yes, it does, right? The day goes forever.
Yeah, it's hard to stop sometimes.
Can't stop.
Won't stop.
Won't stop. No, never. Don't stop.
I keep trying to. Oh, you know what? I really would love to be able to. I'd love to have a reason to take everybody to that burger place that I've been telling you about. But I can't really think of a reason to go out there, except for the meteor shower. I think they'll be closed by then. I don't know. I'd love to go get that.
Yeah, what are their hours?
So good. So good. So
sounds
good.
incredible. And burgers are just.
I think they're the true American food.
I think that, yeah, you're right. They are. I mean, I don't know if did we really invent them? What's the deal with that?
It's just like we have so many burgers. Like, I don't know if we invented it, but I think it's the true American food. I'll stand by that. Everywhere I go, you got burgers. Everywhere I go. Who do I got to murder to get X32 Edit? Who do I got to murder? Why? They've changed their UI and
they make it so hard to
They changed it. It's all new. All new UI, Wes. All new.
Yeah, girl.
Girl. What'd that girl say, girl?
Alrighty. How many of these do we need? Let's see.
None.
Yeah, none. Oh, it's so nice how you can, the New York Times really wants you to be able to read stuff in private mode.
It's so frustrating when you're like, I only need to read this story twice. Once before the show and once on the show.
Right?
I don't need to subscribe. I'm hitting download, but nothing's happening. I don't understand.
Could copy the binary from this system.
Dude, it's crossing my mind. You know what I don't like is when you download things and they retain the download timestamp, or they retain the timestamp of the remote server.
Yes.
How's that possible? I just downloaded X32 Edit, and it says last time it was modified in Thunar is June 24th.
Yeah, that's annoying. That's super annoying.
But it just showed up on my file system 8 seconds ago.
Like,
right?
how is it preserving all of that?
How is that a thing?
In a archive, it makes sense, right? Like that happens.
Sure, yeah, inside the archive file. Sure, yeah, inside the tar. Sure.
Well, was it in a tar?
It is, but I'm saying the tar.gz has a modification date of June 24th. So the possibility is I've downloaded this file multiple times and never extracted it, or I downloaded it and it retained the modification date.
Those do all seem very possible.
Yeah. Damn it. You know what? It's probably in my bin folder. I didn't even fucking check. It wasn't in my path, so I just assumed. Okay, yeah, it's in my bin folder. I did download it before. I downloaded it before. Why did I put that in my path?
It's not in your path?
That's...
Jeez.
Sometimes I need to have a conversation with myself about my behavior.
The Chris guy, man.
I know. I see you head bopping over there.
Oh, yeah. Got a scroll, got a head bop.
Don't deny it's kind of working.
It's totally working.
It's kind of working. I mean, it's not like classic rock or anything, but it's kind of working.
Yeah, it doesn't always have to be classic rock. There's only so much time for.
Do you remember the mixers?
4 or 6? 6 maybe. Because the other one's 4.
Ah, yes, you're right. It is. Man, DNS would be so handy.
You know,
that's the
that
one
would
thing.
be nice.
I don't. That's my bad. That's my bad. I thought that thing would handle it because it does in my other 2 installations, but I guess fuck me, right?
Yeah, fuck you.
Fuck me.
Fuck you. Alright, I'm almost done here.
That's right.
Oh.
Go ahead. Go ahead, Wes. Go ahead.
Get on with it.
Go ahead. All right, I've you know, I was thinking we eventually, yeah, because I can see me registering on yours. We should probably experiment with setting up over there.
Oh yeah, you're right. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I can see that too. It just happens, you know.
Yeah.
Why is this article so goddamn long?
It's too long.
It's too long.
Can't be.
I'm bored already.
Yeah. But we need like some sort of intermediary to like summarize it and tell us what's important about it without having to read it ourselves.
You're
like,
right. Some sort of show, maybe.
Maybe like something that could be listened to in like an audio medium. That'd be handy.
You're right, because I'm already doing stuff with my eyes, but my ears, I don't do even
They're
nothing
bored.
with them.
They're
Yeah,
nothing.
totally bored.
Just listen to people yammer on.
Well, I try not to. But,
Yeah.
you know. All right. Well then, I guess we can do like a Coda Radio now.
I'm good. Either way, you know. We should just have like a live stream radio. I feel like I'm hearing the crosstalk more now.
It does seem more evident. Yeah, I can see it really clearly.
Yeah.
I wonder why that is.
All right, here's what. Yeah, oh god, it's distracting. All right, so I turned up our preamps a little too much, I guess.
You got
all right,
us
so
all
here's what
hot
I'm gonna
and
do.
sexy, huh?
Here's what I'm gonna do. I don't understand. I just don't want to accept the fact that maybe I'm losing my hearing because apparently, I'm really trying to make these headphones work.
Oh, those are the terrible ones.
Yeah.
Oh no.
All right. Oh, I don't have a plug for that one.
Yeah, there's a lot of things going on today.
You hear that? You hear that, boy?
Whoa. That's the studio floor. We don't.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So
it's good to have quicksand.
Okay. So I'm hearing less crosstalk now.
Yeah, there's still some. But
There's still some. Yeah. But we could also. I mean, most of the time when you're talking, I'm.
Yeah. Right. You're listening.
Most of the time. I've got itchy toes. What's that? What is that? What does that mean when you've got itchy toes? What does that mean? What does that mean when you got itchy toes?
You should scratch them.
Do you think I should bring our preamps down a little more?
Yeah, maybe just a touch, as
Yeah.
long as the levels are still looking okay.
Okay, how's that? What do you think? That's not bad, right? I brought them down to 52. They were at 58 initially.
All right, let's see. Yeah, I mean, I still see it. It sounds fine in my cans.
Okay, now they're at 48. That's 48 right there. I think 48's okay if I have the headphones maxed.
Yeah. Yeah, it's such a balance. Like there's
Yeah, it's hard
there's
for me.
so many levels involved.
I want to clearly hear
Right.
everything in our voice.
Yes.
But I
Right.
also don't want to make myself deaf.
And you don't want bleed through from the headphones into the mic.
No, yeah, that's the other problem. You're right.
All right.
All right. So if we're at 45, so this is a 45. Crosstalk's pretty minimum. I'm in the negative 50s now.
That seems like that should be
seems
pretty good, right?
Yeah. I wonder what my wife is doing. I wonder what happened to her.
Well, we got Levi, right?
Yeah, that's true.
He probably knows where she is. He's in charge.
Will you right click on the OBS preview and do the preview
Full screen projector.
Yeah, the second one. Yeah, that. Turns out the HDMI splitter was unplugged.
Oh. I found her. She found us.
Hey, wife. I missed you. All right, we're gonna do a show. Are you heading out? The two big speakers, the two tall ones, I think I want to keep, and the subwoofer, I want to keep out here. Just so you know. I'm doing it. It's that big. It'll be the big box. All right, you're the best. You want? If you're gonna be doing stuff, you can close the door too. All right. Adia's getting us show ready for the sprint because we got people coming in. We got the team coming in.
Aw.
You know, the studio is just never really in great shape.
No, it's
it's always in a constant state of disrepair. So, because there's like no official job and no official budget to like make the studio look clean, my wife is just going to be the best, and she's just going to take it on herself and try to make it nice and clean for everybody.
Aw.
Even though she doesn't make a dime from it. I mean, she's just the best. So that's what's happening in the other room right now if you hear any noise, which I don't think you will.
She's also super quiet and sneaky.
Yeah. Well, she's used to us being on air.
That is the truth. All right. Coda
My
Radio.
wife.
Let's do it. 369. That's fun. All right.
Man, it's been a little while. It's been a minute.
Yeah, where you been, bud?
I feel like I kind of miss doing this show a little bit. I miss Mike now. Now I wish Mike was here.
I know.
Now that I heard that music, I'm like, oh shit, we're doing a show.
Yep. Real gosh darn show. Real gosh darn show. And I'm going to put you on the spot right at the start, so that's going to be fun.
I appreciate the heads up. Although
No, I just put the feedback.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Do you have any ideas? You know what I'm trying to always recommend, and I can't remember it, and I need to really try it. Is that there's a Audio Technica one that everybody really likes.
The 2020, or a nicer one. It was like the 2035. They have a lot of mics.
My thing is, well, we can talk about it in the show. But my thing is, you got to get a. I'll save it for the show.
Yeah. That's true. That's true.
Do I hear hiss? I have the headphones up pretty loud. Huh.
Yeah.
I guess we should probably hit record and do a noise cap.
That's what I was thinking. All right. Recording test.
Boop, 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 boop.
Yep. Okay.
Test,
good.
test, test. Hello, future Drew.
Wes was right.
Yeah.
We've got some soundboard. Good. That's what we need. All right. And let's do some silence, huh? 3, 2, 1. All right. That's pretty good.
That was great, Wes.
Whew. You know, you got to do something. Got to be good at something.
Nick on the rocks.
Oh my god! Don't you just want to make his videos produce slightly better, like help a little bit? I mean, they're really close. They're interesting.
They're so close.
They're so close.
All right, don't forget our gates again. Don't forget. I think I could extend.
You could totally do that. Yeah,
I
but
could.
done.
But you got
Easy.
it. I trust you.
Yeah, it's easy when it's just right here too. You know. Yeah. Now. Oh, yeah, we do look a little quieter, but these levels, this will be fine.
I know. That's what I was thinking. I thought we looked quieter, and I'm looking there on the mixer. We look quieter.
Yeah.
I did turn down our preamps a little bit.
See what we got going on over here.
Yeah,
Oh,
we're
yeah.
checking.
We're very quiet, aren't we?
Yeah. Yeah.
What's happening? Matt, no.
I mean, I do
Matt's
have the preamps turned down to try to reduce the crosstalk. So I guess we'll need feedback from Drew if this is acceptable or not.
Yeah.
It should be okay.
Well, and he'll be here soon anyway to fix it for us.
Drew,
that's
fix
fine.
it.
All right. Coda Radio. 369. What is the date? It's the 5th? Yeah, okay. This is Coda Radio, episode 369. What month is it? August now. That's what happens. The month changes.
It can't be August.
All right, let me reset.
Oh God, that's so weird. I'm getting a little anxious that the year's running out, to be honest with you.
It just started.
Because now it's gonna be near back to school time, and now it's once it's back to school time, then it's nearly Halloween, and then once it's nearly Halloween, it's Thanksgiving, and once it's nearly Thanksgiving, it's nearly Christmas, and oh my God, 2019's over! Oh God,
I'm so scared. All right, take 2. This is Coda Radio, episode 369 for August 5th, 2019. Hello, and welcome to Coda Radio, Jupiter Broadcasting's weekly talk show that takes a pragmatic look at the art and business, software development, and related technologies, and probably a few other things this week because, while I'm normally joined by Mr. Michael Dominic, today he's out, sick. You know, you gotta heal. You gotta take your health seriously, as my perhaps reluctant co-host knows very, very well. Welcome to the show again, Chris.
Hello, Mr. Payne. My plans of slowly poisoning Mr. Dominic while he travels so I can regain my place here on the show have come to fruition.
I assumed he was just in danger living in Florida anyway, right? It's not safe down there.
And whenever you got a kid,
you're just gonna get sick.
You're like a target, man. Like a target. But I'm glad I could be here. And really, I kind of miss doing the show, so it's nice to have an opportunity to come on, although it's not the same without Mike.
It certainly isn't. And actually, it's kind of good you're here today, because let's start with some feedback. There's a feedback you might be able to help me with. All right, so over on codaradio.reddit.com, that's right, we do have a subreddit. User BorkDude, who I will note is a prolific member of the Clojure community. You'll see him making all kinds of neat utilities, writing excellent blog posts, and helping users out on the Clojure subreddit all the gosh darn time. He writes, I'm looking for a good mic for voice recording, since I'll be a guest on a podcast soon. Since you sound good in your shows, thank you. Can you share what mics you're using? And, you know, I know a thing or two about this too. You've been doing this a long time, and it can be especially tricky. It's one thing to do it when you got, production budget, and it's another when, you just need to sound good enough.
Yeah, and first of all, it's really kind of him to consider that on the behalf of the podcast.
Oh my gosh, so much so.
Right? Thank you for just thinking of that. Plus, it's kind of nice, even if you're not going to be a guest on a podcast or you're not planning to record an audiobook anytime soon, it's kind of nice to have a decent microphone for meetings, jumping on a call. Maybe you want to do a call from your PC to your desktop. It's just nice to have a good microphone in general. But you don't need to spend hundreds of dollars.
Right.
So there are a couple that I do recommend. I was trying to remember before the show, and I figured it out. I'll put a link in the show notes. If you just want to get started with something that hooks up over a USB, the one thing I'm going to ask of you is make sure you buy a microphone that has a headphone jack so you can do what's called local monitoring.
That is so important.
Right. And it also, if you're using Linux or something like that, just makes things a little bit easier because it just shows up as an output device and whatnot. But I really like, for the entry level that still sounds pretty great, like you could start a podcast with this, the Audio-Technica ATR 2500 USB condenser microphone. It's $70, primeable.
That's hard to beat.
Yeah, and it'll be your audio in and your audio out. It's all you need, so you don't have to buy an audio interface or anything like that. It's really nice and straightforward. Another solid microphone that I've used for years that's a little more expensive, similar thing, the Rode Podcaster.
Oh,
pretty good microphone. And then if you want to step things up from there, there's things like the Heil PR40 or the what's the Rogan mic that people love that it doesn't work for my voice.
Oh, the SM7B.
Yes. So there's tons of good mics when you want to start going up. And just one thing to keep in mind is, like I just said there, like not every mic works for everybody. I bought this nice microphone thinking, oh, I'm going to sound great now. Works great on the Joe Rogan podcast. I put it on and I hated the way I sounded.
Like, no, this is not for me. So yeah, you will probably have to experiment, and there are probably a couple different price levels, right? You have nice USB ones, and if it's just sort of like I'm an occasional guest and for conference calls, that's the level. If you're doing something more serious, then maybe you want to look into XLR-based mics and getting a real interface. But then you're probably going to be out, what, $300, $400 by the end of it?
Yeah, as you well know, there's a price for everybody, really. But yeah, $300-something bucks, you could probably get something pretty usable. If you're thinking about starting a podcast, maybe your business wants to do a podcast or you personally want to start one, I have to recommend friend of the show, Dan Benjamin's podcast method. Just go Google that. It's on the 5x5 network. And rumor has it, a little birdie tells me that it's about to start back up. It's been on a hiatus since 2017, but rumor has it it's about to start very soon. And the podcast method, 26 episodes deep, so it wouldn't take you that long to go through it. In 26 episodes, you'd basically know how to run a network. I mean, it's an in-depth thing. And he covers everything from gear to technique. So that's the podcast method. And that's a good way to get going. But I will try to put a link to that.
Yeah, we'll have some mics linked there in the show notes.
Again, it was the Audio-Technica ATR 2500 USB. And I really recommend you get the USB edition because you're going to need to get yourself a USB audio interface if you go with anything that's XLR or analog. Like a headset that comes in over like a microphone plug, like a little tiny one, that needs to go into something besides your machine that has your built-in port if you want it to sound decent.
Yeah, you need to know how you sound if you're going to sound any good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you got to be able to hear it.
Excellent. Well, that's a great question. Good luck, and I guess we look forward to listening to you on that podcast soon.
And you say he's busy, he's active, I should say, in the Clojure community?
Oh, yes, very much so.
He should put a link in the subreddit on the podcast. Submit to the Coder Radio
subreddit.
Once
it's out, let us know, and
yeah,
we'll recommend it here for sure.
That's really neat. You got people in the Clojure community listening to the show now, don't you?
Love it.
Well done, sir. I wonder how else that. So I wonder how the old Clojure community felt about Mike's take.
That's a good question. We got some good feedback on Twitter about it too. So yeah,
I'll wait for him to come back.
Yeah, there's some other feedback. Some people were being helpful. So we'll definitely talk more about that.
Helpful?
I mean, helpful? Sometimes. Some of it's helpful.
Yeah. All right.
You're so jaded.
No, you know. I guess. Well, Mr. Payne, since Mr. Dominic isn't here, is it okay if I bring a couple of stories to the class?
Yeah, of course.
There's one that you found, which is the exact opposite of a story I found.
Oh boy!
So I thought that'd be kind of interesting to talk about this week, and it's about the plight of browser extension developers. So the first one is a link that you found. Google and Mozilla are failing to support browser extension developers, and it's a good case. It was just recently published, and you'll have a link in the show notes. But I grabbed a couple of things from it, and I thought this would be good, fodder for conversation. So the author writes, it's a regular occurrence to hear open source developers are selling their browser extensions only for their users to then be exploited later on by new owners.
Yeah, right. We've seen a ton of these lately.
You build up, a handful of users, you monetize them, you sell them off. He writes, we are witnessing the failure of browser vendors to recognize the value of our labor and the important role it plays in a healthy browser ecosystem. They go on to say, Mozilla has deprioritized the placement of donation buttons And the Chrome Web Store and the Microsoft Store do not offer features for supporting extension developers at all. How important are extensions to why you use a web browser?
They play a small
Really?
role. I mean, I can think of a few that we use pretty regularly, and they're not. It's not essential, but it would be a factor, right? Like once you have started using extensions, unless there is a direct equivalent or the extension is available in both places, it's at least a small disincentive to shift.
I mean, for me, it's pretty strong because a big part of my day job is collecting information from the web that I'm going to use for, consideration in a show later. So I want to do research or reading, or I want to mark it up, or I want to save a link, and a lot of that workflow uses extensions. And for me, it's sometimes been like the thing that keeps me on Chrome, for example, or what kept me on Firefox for so long. And in fact, there's even forks of Firefox to support the old Netscape plugin API.
Oh boy.
So it's obviously super important to some people. And this author is making the case that there's really no support from the browser manufacturers. Okay, I think point made. Point made, right?
Yeah, I think the analogs to some other things we've seen more platforms that have extensibility, things like Alexa skills or
cancel.
Good
Just
thinking.
in case.
But it does seem like some platforms expect there to be this sort of user-provided content. Thinking about how that gets monetized, if you want it to exist, seems like it makes sense.
Anything of certain complexity and support requirements needs a form of monetization just to be sustainable, I suppose.
Right.
And that's really where the issue kind of comes up. Now, so that's the story you found. Now, the story I found, which is like an exact contrast and maybe explains the entire problem, is half of Google Chrome extensions have fewer than 16 installs.
Wait, 16?
Yeah. In all, about 50% of all Chrome extensions have fewer than 16 installs, meaning that half of the Chrome extension ecosystem is basically a ghost town. This is according to a recent scan of the entire Chrome Web Store conducted by Extensions Monitor. Or Extension, no S. Extension Monitor.
Interesting. Now, I do wonder, I'd like to see some more detailed statistics, because it's kind of hard to say. And it does make sense, right? How many extensions do you install? A handful?
More than I should.
And probably most of them, or the most essential ones, are the popular ones, right? Like there's a couple nice ones that you get, like, HTTPS everywhere maybe, or there's a certain ad blocker that you use. But it's a rapid decline of like...
I've got 15 that I can count.
Oh, wow.
Just in my toolbar. I mean, it's...
Okay, so you have a few more than I do.
It's a Markdown link generator, LastPass, the template extension, which is just a remarkable piece of engineering because you can make your own extensions out of it. And it's how I can copy entire sections of an article, and then it will go get the URL and the title of the document, and I can just paste that whole thing.
That is nice.
It's a really nice extension, and there's a good community around it. The other one I have is Imager Reupload. This is one I'll use to share like an image with the team a lot. I'll capture something, and I'll use this just to repost on Imager. So you capture this, and then it just gives you a little selection window, and then just repost it up on Imager and puts the URL in your clipboard.
Right. Skip all the part where you like take a screenshot and save it, and then open an Imager tab, and then upload it. Right.
I now have switched to using a Pinboard extension. I used to use a JavaScriptlet bookmark or whatever you call them, but now ad blockers and Chrome's built-in protection, they block all that. So I have an extension for that. I have the Reddit enhancement suite because I use Reddit enough to just make it a little bit better. I'm also using uBlock Origin because I
don't think you need to justify that one.
It makes it more readable, right?
Yeah.
And then a tool that we use internally, Diigo, D-I-I-G-O, which is it's a highlighting tool. And then I have Web Cache Viewer Clear, so I can either clear my web cache or I can view the web cache version of a document. Then I have some buttons to subscribe in Feedly. I have an Evernote extension, Dark Reader, and some YouTube plugins, as well as 7Geese, which is our OKR software, and Grammarly.
Nice. Okay. Well, that's fairly reasonable. And a lot of those, right? There's a couple ones that are like open source and have communities. There's several probably that are proprietary or at least supported by
And you know how badly
company.
I need Grammarly. You know that.
Yes, I do.
I need it badly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I kind of am. I am an edge case. I'm gathering from this article.
I probably have like 6 or so on
Really?
that order. Yeah.
And when you do you sync them? Do you sync them to a Google account? So when you open up or a Firefox account, so when you open up your browser, they resync. Like,
yes.
are they? Oh, okay, that's what I used to.
Mm-hmm.
Good and bad, actually.
It is good and bad.
So the article goes on to say further, 19,379 extensions, which is just over 10%, have literally 0 installs. And further, 25,000 extensions, 13%, have just 1 user. And the scan found that there are very few Chrome extensions that really have managed to establish any really large dedicated user base at all. And according to Extension Monitor, around 87% of all extensions have fewer than 1,000 installs. So now you contrast to the other story that says the browser manufacturers aren't properly supporting them.
Mm-hmm.
Why would they? There doesn't seem to be user demand, unfortunately.
Well, yeah, it is a kind of a funny thing, right? Because most of the people that use browsers aren't, super into technology. A browser is like a key component of a computer, so you do not need to be an expert or even interested in doing anything but going to Facebook to use a browser, right? So why would you may not know extensions are a thing, and I think perhaps rightfully so, in the push to security, extensions have been downplayed a lot, right? I mean, unless you already know they exist, maybe they get suggested to you, maybe.
Yeah, I think you just nailed it in 2 different ways there. So the number one thing that you said is the user base. There's so many users that the power users that would be using extensions would be a minority because they're just a small fraction.
Yeah.
And then the other thing that you said was, what was the other thing? I cut this part out, but what was the other thing you said? There's 2 parts. My memory sucks. But there was another part you said. What was the second half of your sentence?
Well, I mean, just that they're not going to really be advertised, right? They've been downplayed.
No, not that. Oh, yeah, that. Okay, yeah, okay. All right, I'll make a clean edit. And then to your other point, you're right. They have been sort of reduced in functionality. They're not quite as powerful as extensions were in the first iteration of browser extensions. They don't fundamentally change the game necessarily. And a lot of these are really more about tying into web services. When I like LastPass, Grammarly, Digo, Evernote, these are really about tying into web services more than anything else. Imager. So.
Yeah, right. So unless you're already running a web service, then and then that falls into the category that we already talked about.
And if I wasn't a user of any one of these individual services, I wouldn't bother with this extension.
Not, no.
So I'm going to be a minority slice of the overall browser market.
Right, because it's not really generic browser functionality versus your templates tool, for instance, which is, right? That's just kind of extending and making your browser more useful.
Mm-hmm. And you can also see where the incentive is for the browser manufacturers. It makes sense to incentivize your LastPasses and your Evernotes and your Grammarlys to create browser extensions. But, Joe Adblock creator, who gets 1,000 users, just not worth Google's time.
From the developer perspective, too, I mean, it just seems like I might write an extension if one doesn't exist and I just like really need to do this functionality and then can, slam together some JavaScript or something. But I don't think you would do it, when extensions kind of were first coming onto the scene. I'm thinking like early Firefox, as they were getting developed. They were exciting, but now we live in like an open source world.
They're old news?
Yeah, they're old news, right? I mean, no one thinks about it. You're familiar with like popular open source projects, but you don't get the same kind of control, right? You're forever dodging around and playing ball with whatever the browsers want to do, and you're always going to be sort of, second name. You're like, sure, you make this cool project that you spend a lot of time on, but it's just an extension that maybe works in one browser.
Yeah, so I guess it's in a way the market works these things out.
I think so.
But you have people on either ends that some people are suffering and some people are prospering. And I don't know, it's interesting to see both percolate in 1 week in the different links that we collect.
Mm-hmm. And it does seem, it's like it makes sense it's not working. If people want it to work, then there are probably things we could do, and it doesn't seem like there are people that care that much.
You also found a link in here about a Medium post that was, I think the title was, All of the Best Engineering Advice that I stole from non-technical people. And it reminded me about one of my favorite bosses back in the day when I worked in IT. She was not necessarily inherently technical. She was, she joined the company that was it was a cooking company. They made food. And, they're out of business. So the company was called Dream Dinners. And the idea was you'd go on their website. And this was when web applications were very new. You'd go on their website, and they'd have a monthly menu. You'd put together an order. You'd submit it to the system. You'd pay for it. And then you'd go to one of their franchise locations and actually assemble the food.
Whoa.
And then you put it in a bag and take it home, and you got like the month's dinners. The downside was you had to go do the work. They later started doing the work for you, trying to be competitive.
Right.
But the other side was like you just spent 2 hours and you had a month's worth of food.
All the ingredients were there for you, right? You kind of just put them
together. You added
together.
your own garlic if you liked. There was no like limit. So if you wanted 4 scoops of garlic, you could make it extra garlic.
And I do.
Or if you don't like garlic, you leave it all out. So that was the benefit, and you could be kind of menu selective and get something that was sort of tailored to your needs. And I'll tell you the one time that we really found it very useful, because I got an employee discount, was right after Angela gave birth to our first son.
Oh, yeah.
And it was like we just wanted to not have to worry about food for a month. And we just stacked before the due date, we just stacked the freezer full of dinners.
That's great.
And so there was a pretty significant technology back end that I was responsible for that made it all possible, because the franchise was doing well for a while. That's a different story. Anyways, one of the things is the gal that ended up being the IT director started more in the food side of the operation.
Oh, yeah, sure.
But she was a very clever, intelligent individual, and she worked her way up into the IT position because Elaine was the one that everybody went to go fix their computers. That person.
It's just, they're competent. They figured it out. Yeah.
And as that position evolved and as that company grew over time, she retained the IT management position and got a team under her. And as the server side grew out, I became the Linux server admin. And she was probably one of the best bosses I've ever had. She had a really good sense. She had a good intuition of knowing when to trust, like what the team was saying, and when to ask further questions,
right?
And derive, like, she just listened. She listened and was able to derive what our intention was, and ask some details. Get the right things, like, kind of out of us. And it was a really good combination while it lasted. It didn't last forever.
Right.
Again, that's another story. So this article you linked, all of the best engineering advice I stole from non-technical people. Number 1, people like us make our money in the seams of things. And the whole thing goes on about how they brainstorm, how they do their work. And it reminded me a lot about listening, asking the right questions. Even if you're not a technical person, you can actually still be a really solid contributor.
Oh yeah, right.
In that environment.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, there's so many things of business and just life are like process, right? And everyone has to do those things.
Building a house or building a server.
Right. Yeah. And there are some people I think that are receptive or intuitive or open to learning, accepting when they don't know things and listening, like you say, right? And that means you can thrive in those environments, because if you can figure out who to trust and who the experts are and know who to listen to, you can perhaps effectively, bridge information.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, you get a sense of who is authoritative on what topics and a sense of their track record over time. I think something that we get kind of wrong in our industry, in our community, is you weren't around in the days of small hard drives,
right?
I used to only have 640 kilobytes of RAM, and my onboard storage was only 2 megabytes.
Yikes!
And we get kind of caught up in you didn't earn your way. You didn't. How dare you come in here with your cloud?
Right. Right. We've suffered, and somehow that means we require that from everyone else.
Huh? That is what it is, isn't it? That's.
I mean, it happens all over the place, right? In so
That's
many
horrible.
elements. And there is a certain aspect of, like, you do need to put in your time to learn things and get experience. And, like, there's some things like wisdom or whatever that just take time to get. But at the same time, people, there are different paths all the time. And I don't know about you, but I frequently am impressed. I mean, I'm thinking specifically in, like, software, but really in other fields too. Sometimes the people who are the best at it, didn't have the traditional path. They didn't get the right degree or whatever, but they've migrated later into the field and can be some of the best, most interesting perspective people.
Does that still work now? That's one of the things I've been wondering. Like, if I was to hit the reset button, would I have to go through a certain educational route to even make a break now? Because I just went right from high school into work. And then I did college sort of as part of additional training that work paid for.
That's nice.
It was like, not something, I didn't go middle school, high school, college. I went middle school, high school, work, and then over a period of 6, 7, 8 years, attended different college courses. And that was the trajectory that worked perfectly for me. But I don't know if starting today, if you could even pull that off.
You know, I think that's definitely been true, right? And like a bachelor's degree does sort of feel like a little stamp you have to get just to, you know, get your resume looked at sometimes. I think that has changed for the better somewhat. And audience, if you agree, disagree, let us know. Coder.show/contact. I think the tech industry in particular, at least in some of the larger companies even, has more of a a reflection of that. And if you can get away maybe from the more traditional companies and get to a more modern tech company, I think there's a more fresh perspective, because it's almost like you can code it, you can't, right? So especially with this culture of, you know, like intense interviews that do maybe not the right relevant challenge, and that's another topic for another show, of course. But you can just prove yourself. Or in the world of open source too, right? You can be like, well, look, yeah, I don't have a CS degree, I maybe don't have a degree at all, but I've contributed to these 6 projects and everyone likes me, and here's my PRs. And
so this is where I was going. Or is that the other route? Because I look at some of the things that are really making money at the infrastructure level, disclaimer, and there is no 5 years. There is no 5 years to be had in some of these technologies. There is no like long experience, because they're so new. And I hate to say this as somebody who's been doing this for a long time, but like some ways, too much experience is almost
you have to be
deficit.
You have to be willing to throw out, right? Like you can't stick to things the way you do in other fields.
Because if somebody like a company were to hire me right now to like move their IT infrastructure to the cloud, I would just essentially recreate their on-premises setup in the cloud. Like I'd do some virtual machines, and that would be my approach. And okay, everything's in the cloud now. It's like I'm
right.
You almost need somebody who doesn't have too much experience. Does that make sense?
Right. Well, because they would be open. They would be like, well, what does the cloud say that, you know? I'll go look at the documentation for whatever provider, and they're probably going to point to like, yeah, you could bring your database over, or well, we'll sell you a database, no problem. We have it managed. It has backups. Here's how it works. Here's the availability of it.
I don't think it's impossible for the old dog to learn new tricks. It's just a matter of time and energy that you have to spend on trying out new things when what you've been doing for so long works. So for an example, this is just a small one, but we had a system here that was a very traditional storage approach to it's a box, it runs FreeNAS, it's an appliance, we put storage on it, and we don't touch it. And it was sort of an old school way of thinking that we had another box that connected to that over network storage that ran the virtualization. And it was 2 really loud hot boxes running here in the studio that we just didn't need. And then we decided, well, let's revamp this approach, and let's take a look at how we can do all of this on one machine and utilize containers for the applications, which if we're not using VMs means we could stack all of this on one machine. And it sort of shifted the way I look at building out infrastructure and the way I look at application portability. And it wasn't so much that I wasn't willing to try it. It was more that I hadn't really had an opportunity to try something different from what had been working for so long.
Right. I mean, there is still some wisdom to the, don't fix it if it isn't broken. But that only depends, right? Everything's a trade-off, a cost-benefit. So there's a cost, right? Like we had to redo a bunch of things, but the benefit has definitely outweighed it, I think.
I mean, I don't think it's a exaggeration to say it's like we're getting 10x the use out of the machine now. So if we're going to run that, so we consolidated down to one machine, so we're using less power, and we're getting 10 times the use.
I also just feel better about it, too. Like if we needed to go rebuild it again, it wouldn't be a big deal. I mean, we'd have to replace the hardware or whatever, but the software part would be easy.
I think the part for me was I had like I get it moment. And I think that might be what's important about taking somebody who's used to doing it one way. Like you and I, we both know an individual who he'll only do something one way for the rest of his life until like some really earth-shattering reason came up. And if it's personal life stuff, if it's IT stuff, and that's not an uncommon way of looking at things. And for me, it was I just didn't quite see the utility. It wasn't like I wasn't going to do it. I just didn't quite see the utility until I had like the I get it moment. And for me, that was working with Docker Compose. And having that experience of ripping down a dozen applications running on a server that were in the middle of doing something even.
Right,
In one case, one time we did it, they were in the middle of processing something. We ripped them all down and then used Docker Compose to just pull down the latest versions of those images and stand everything back up again. And everything just picked right back up. Like in 3 minutes, we had new versions of all of the software. We had the latest versions of all of the software. We had proven to me that the data and the config were both separate and safe.
Right.
And that the application was ephemeral. And when and it was one line on the command line because everything's in this super easy to read YAML file that I literally can just
it's clear.
it's
Yeah,
just-
right? I
just
mean,
read-
it just
it's
kind of
just-
tells you. If you know anything about Docker at all, it's all laid out.
It's all there. You don't even need to know anything about Docker. You just need to know things about the fundamentals, like the basic fundamentals.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's all clear to you. It's like, oh, this is how it works. Oh, God, that's so simple. And so when I was able to tear it all down, update it, and stand it all up, and have it just pick right back up in the processing, it resumed. This particular job was resumable. Changed everything.
It kind of makes me think too of a little bit of like when I first discovered like the Unix command line, and I had all these different tools, and I could put them together. They would work together, and that's true with Docker too. But Docker Compose just takes it to the next level, and I mean it's right there in the name, of course. It lets you compose them together, and then you can feel like, oh yeah, here's all my little pieces that I need for my distributed system, which is what we are all building these days, and then it helps you cleanly latch them together.
My bad, really, for not coming up with a reason to try it sooner, because I thought I had done a good enough job reading and conversing about it that I understood it.
Yeah, I mean, you only have a few related shows.
Yeah, and I got the concepts. Oh, you tear down the software, stand it back up. Okay, I get it. But when it was software that in the past I would spend a week configuring, I would spend like 5 days in the evening
tweaking, tuning, getting it just right.
That I had personally spent my time over the years managing, right? And then to see this difference where it's like 30 seconds and everything was right back up and running, that's when it really became practical to me. That's when it shifted. I'm like, oh, okay, so I'm never doing it the old way ever again. I'm never going back.
And there's just we were talking about this on Linux Unplugged, but there's I think it took time for these things to work for the kind of tasks you're doing, because they're techniques born out of like scale, where if you do it the traditional way at some point, it's not going to work. There's too many moving factors. There's too much moving state everywhere. And I think it just took some time for the tooling to get to a place where even if you're doing this all on one box and you just want to go real quick and you don't need to spend hours customizing every little thing, you don't have to now.
And it's not just for web applications. Like we're kind of thinking about using Docker for some recording uses. Do you want to? I don't think we talked about this. But
no, that's true.
Wes has created. Can I say it?
Yeah, sure. I mean, it works in theory. How nice it's gonna work in reality.
Do you think it's okay if I say the name?
Oh yeah, sure. I guess.
I mean, obviously, it's not related to the food thing, or the toy.
Right. No, not at all. Totally different.
So Wes has created a Docker image or a container image that we are creating for the purposes of recording, I should say. It's really for production purposes. It may be consumable by others, but it's really for our own production purposes. And we're going to nickname it the Jack in the Box, because it's a Jack audio system, a rather sophisticated Jack audio system, but not too sophisticated, that is in a Docker layer that our hosts can install on their system, connect their in and outs to, and essentially have a Jupiter Broadcasting contained recording environment.
I mean, really, it's kind of living up in the name of Docker, right? And that's the whole thing. It's like all right, we have some hardware, we need that. You take the container, you got to set up the right sort of actual docking interfaces, right? Get all the right supply lines, access to the sound devices in this case, for instance. But then the software part's unchanged, it's the same. Now, it probably won't be so easy because Linux Audio never is.
Mm-hmm.
But it's super useful that we could just do that and have it reliable and not have to do, especially when you might be running some software that, either it's proprietary or you have to custom compile it, or you need a lot of installed dependencies that may or may not vary between distributions.
It gives us a few tools, though. The first, using Jack, which is an audio subsystem for Linux, it allows us to do equalizing and compression It allows us to sort of guarantee a certain sound that gets sent out to the live stream while also recording a certain dry audio for post-processing. So that's pretty fancy right there. There's certain things we can do with it down the road. But there's other things we can do that are kind of down the road, maybe going to use, maybe we never would. But if it's a Docker image that's actually up on the Docker Hub, in theory, Wes could tweak something, send it up, and then tell the host, okay, go update your Docker images. They go update their images, and now they've got the latest tweaks that Wes has applied to our recording layer that they can run on their OS. And that's pretty powerful, too, because it allows us to sort of neutralize the distribution, because different hosts run different distributions.
Yeah, yes, they do.
And
Mr. Fedora.
Hey, it lets us sort of normalize that out, and it's pretty far from any kind of normal use of Docker that I've seen.
Oh yeah, no, I mean a lot of those mounts that I'm doing there, you wouldn't want to do that in production.
No. Like I said, it's not a web application. It's not something you're going to host, but it's something that maybe you'd set up on a ThinkPad to do recording.
Okay, so related, I've been playing a little bit with Podman, and I think technologies you should try that maybe are a little outside what you're comfortable with now. You should check out the Red Hat Container Stack.
Really? So
I think you might like it.
Okay. We should probably explain what Podman is for people that aren't familiar with it, because it's not that different. It's still container based. It's still the standard containers as you know it, but it sort of replaces the Docker Compose tools in that layer, right?
We can get to the Compose part, but really it replaces Docker.
So no Docker daemon.
No, so that's one of the big things. Podman is a daemonless container engine for developing, managing, and running OCI containers. Don't say Docker containers. They're OCI containers on your Linux system. There's a couple really neat things. So first of all, the daemonless stuff. That's nice just from security, from many aspects. Podman's been designed, it's newer, right? So it's a little more modern. It takes really nice advantage of all the, user namespaces, all that stuff right out of the box. And they've done some neat stuff where you can run Podman without being root. Now you can run it as root, and it does, still supports all the nice sandboxing and user namespaces, but you can also run it not as root. Now, you probably wouldn't necessarily want to do this in all production scenarios, but they've put in a bunch of work to make that work behind the scenes. So one example is like network namespaces are used all the time in containers, right? Now you can create one as an unprivileged user, but you can't make the virtual Ethernet pairs that actually are used to bridge the network namespaces unless you're root. So they have implemented basically a user space TCP IP stack to provide the same connection. And so there's a couple things like that. There's like a fuse file system that gets used for another feature.
What runs that? What runs that user level application if there's no daemon?
I don't know quite how the process hierarchy works out, but that's all it is, right? But that's all it is, because it's, that's all containers are. They're processes with, in the right namespace and under the right C groups. I don't know the technical details of how that. I should look more into that.
Curious how that does sound very appealing.
Well, what's nice then too is so you can just run it and then, just install Podman. You can then start pulling down. It supports, depending on which distribution you installed, and you might have to go configure like the Docker registry, but it's one of the default ones. So you basically just go tell it which registries you want to talk to, and then you can use it exactly like Docker. It has the same commands. You can just, even some of their docs tell you to alias Podman for Docker so that you just, use it all the same.
That was my question, was like that one of the things that makes Docker great is the command syntax is simple.
And it's, just because it's so popular, it's kind of become the de facto.
So they're just like, halvesies.
Yep, that's ours now.
Well, that's kind of nice.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, you can just install it, start playing with it, run it, and it's nice.
Were you doing this on Ubuntu?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, They have a PPA you can install, no problem.
I noticed, I think it's on Fedora 30. I think it's already on Fedora 30, because when we were messing around with our new setup, I saw Podman.
Oh yeah, it definitely is. Yeah. And they've got some other tools there too. So there's a building tool that's specific. Podman can build too, but they have Builda. Now it supports building from Docker files, which is great. But they also have their own support, so you can do really easy stuff like starting from scratch or like super minimal images. And they're using that for integration. So like there's Ansible Container, which is a way to use Ansible to build containers. That was kind of hacky the way you had to do it through Docker. And this, it's basically just sort of commands. So you say like build a run this command in this container that we're working on right now, and then you can like commit those changes back to it. So then you can use some sort of interactive script if you have some more dynamic scenario.
Ooh, that's really nice.
Yeah. Or if you have existing Docker files, you can just build them that way too.
Okay, so it seems like super obvious. If I'm using Ansible, this is a lot cleaner. I'm not still 100% clear. Like if I'm me throwing up some images on a Droplet or a Linode VPS, I'm still not super clear why I would use Podman over Docker, especially because the Docker Hub is really active.
Well, so you can still interrupt with Docker Hub, no problem.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Totally. It just natively supports that. It even also makes it easy if you want to you already have images over. So you should first know too, because it's OCI, more OCI inspired and compliant. The containers are under a different path. So when you first install Podman, you'll like to try to see if you have anything, if you've been using Docker, and you won't. But you can tell it to look at the Docker stuff, and it's makes it easy to transfer. So you can pull from Docker Hub, you can pull from the Docker daemon on your local system and move images back and forth between them.
So it's easy to move over?
Oh yeah, very much
that's
so.
Nice. Okay.
I mean, so I think it's just it's kind of a cleaner design, really. So it's a little bit more minimal. You don't have this root daemon running all the time. But for you, it's probably not. So I think it's still in the play with and evaluate. It does have some stuff. So it's got pods, right? Pods is right in the name because Podman is built in, it comes from Red Hat, and Red Hat's Kubernetes player, right? I mean, OpenShift. So it's very much, built in the Kubernetes era. So it also supports pods, which are much like the analog in Kubernetes, where you have these containers sort of joined together. So it can be used somewhat similar to Docker and Compose, but I don't think the level of tooling for that specific use case is quite as nice as Docker Compose. So maybe not quite there, but there's a lot of neat tech. And if you need to do something a little more complicated, and you maybe need to customize, you really care about how your containers are running, or you're concerned about security, these tools are pretty neat.
Yeah, the security aspect of it is very appealing. Also, I tend to agree with your assessment that a lot of the tools that I see come out of Red Hat, I have two feelings about them. One, God, I wish we had that a year ago. And two, that's a really nice, tight, clean design. It's really clean, easy to understand, sensible. Not for everything, but for a lot of the tools on the command line, that has generally been my impression. So it seems like it is something that might be worth giving a little bit of a go. Would my workflow of having these Compose files that I go to, that this is this stack of applications, and I have another Compose file for that's another stack of applications.
That's the part I think that would be missing for you.
Okay.
Because Docker Compose adds its own layer of orchestrating. So if you were using Ansible or some other things, right, and it sort of takes it apart. So instead of I want this container running all the time, in order to check on fail or restart, in the Red Hat model, the Podman model, they're well, you already have systemd, right? That's already a thing. Just do that. Systemd's great at it, and it does that for your other services.
And that's what I'd prefer.
Yeah, right. So it plays really nicely maybe if you already are using systemd a bunch or other configuration management tooling. Or alternatively, if you want to run systemd inside a container, which can be a little bit difficult and hacky sometimes with Docker, Podman supports it right out of the gate.
It makes me really think that it's worth spending more time getting into Ansible too. Maybe it's worth, even for our small infrastructure, could be worth us.
Oh yeah, no, I mean, I think it is. There is certainly overhead in learning new tools and having to apply them. And there is a certain, you have to assess. What can be tricky, and I think is Docker Compose is nice. It's working well for us. But if we do a little bit more, then Ansible makes sense.
Yeah.
It's just that right if you don't need to customize, then you want a tool that kind of hides a lot of the stuff from you. But the second you have semi-complicated customization needs, you want a tool that's a little more flexible and ready to go.
I mean, the most we have is weird mounts, right?
Yeah, so far. Now, where Ansible then gets really nice is right now we would re-image a machine and then install a few things, make a few manual tweaks maybe, and then from the point of starting our Docker Compose, that all would be totally the same. Ansible would just bridge that gap, right? So that we could have the whole system up and running. And you can see it's one of those things where it's if you're doing one system, it's still better, but it's less better. And if you're doing 10 systems, it really matters. And if you're doing 1,000 systems, then, there's no other way to do it.
So what about a scenario where I'm developing locally and then I want to deploy on a remote system? Is there a particular advantage to using Podman, do you think?
You can, you can have it just do less, I guess, right? Like you can just install it. You don't have this daemon running.
And the rootless aspect would be nice. Just be able to, I assume it must be like you add your user to a group, then you can use.
You don't even have to do that.
Oh,
yeah, that's what's nice, right? And so you don't have to worry that like you having all these people that you've added to the Docker group who are now sudoers.
Yeah.
And there's a good talk that Red Hat has out, and I'll try to find it and add a link to the show notes, kind of talking about some of these downfalls. The Docker socket is really just a security nightmare in so many things. And because Docker is so hooked into all these low-level kernel primitives.
And it's going to be an ongoing soft spot, too.
Yeah, you can do stuff where you like change users or get new permissions that under normal circumstances get logged or audited or the kernel's aware of. But because you take a totally different route concocted by Docker,
right,
it's mostly invisible unless you're actively looking for it.
Yeah, again, going back to my general, totally outrageous assertion about Red Hat's tools, is the great thing, is that they're going to be integrated with the logging, with the rest of the system. Cockpit rolls out, it's got support for it. You can see it in the logs. It is really nice from that standpoint, and it works with the wider tool set. I'm convinced, actually. I think I'm going to give it a go right here on the old laptop because I've got a couple of ideas that I want to try.
Yeah, and the nice part too is you can still play together too. So you can do you can use Builda and Podman locally to build your images, to test them, to run them on your machine, and then just push the exact same image up to your server when you want to run it with Docker Compose. That's totally fine. Yeah, it's pretty nice.
So, how many containers have you seen running on a host? I saw this article about taking a system from 30 to 230 Docker containers.
Oh boy.
What are they doing? I don't know. But I do kind of wonder, because I'm kind of new to this in actual production and not just screwing around, what our limit is. Like, I don't know. Like, I have a better sense because in VMworld, I carve out 4 gigabytes of RAM.
Right.
I carve out 100 gigabytes of disk storage. I allocate this much to that system, and now it's gone. And that math is simple in a way.
It is, and it's a cleaner separation of concerns, right? Because you're basically like, all right, well, here's this whole other operating system over here. I will deal with it by itself, and then only if I need to go back up to the hypervisor will I even think about that.
And maybe the application in that VM consumes all of the resources in that VM, maybe. But right now, in our setup, an application is just another process on the box. And that, for me, is a weird mental shift because I'm used to it being isolated off in its own machine. And to me, it seems like, I know you can put constraints on it, but it seems possible that just one of those containers could go crazy.
Yeah, sure, right? It could fill up all of its volume space. It could eat a bunch of CPU.
Yeah, that to me is that's where I can't say, well, we'll put X amount of containers. Because I don't feel like I can't predict like I could with a VM.
Right. And I think that's maybe partly a result of the different philosophies behind this. Because I think if you'd probably have already instrumented your system, right? You'd have a bunch of stuff. So you'd build the box and then you would go test how many containers you run. And you'd probably then be able to run more containers than you could VMs. But you're right, you don't have the same sort of heuristics and understandings that you do.
But I wouldn't be able to say, well, if I can run 4 VMs, I can run 10 containers. There's just not that math. You can't do that.
Yeah. And as this article points out, because it's nice that you don't have multiple kernels in some senses.
Yes.
But it means that a lot of, you might need to do more tuning because you have a more deeply nested system, or the kernel is doing more nested things than in the VM model.
Mm-hmm.
So like they're running into stuff where, the regular Docker networking setup involves a whole bunch of NAT, and then that's going to involve the contract table and IP table so you can keep track of all the connections that are going, right, as you map onto the Docker subnet and all that.
Yes.
So at some point, that'll just start dropping packets if you have too many. And that's like, how do you know, right? I mean, there's tunables. You can go play with it. If you're already doing a lot of Linux kernel, optimization, maybe but probably you don't. Probably you just ran a bunch of containers and you have to go.
Yeah.
You have to be instrumenting and monitoring your system if you're going to even see those problems.
That's one of those. It's a combination of the driver, of the hardware, of your specific kernel version, of the software that's talking to the kernel. Like, it's such a unique blend that the only way you'll get real data and any kind of predictability is to just do it in production. But that, to me, seems crazy because what you're proposing is just throw it up there and see how it performs. And ideally, you over-provision so you know it's going to perform well, and maybe you can add, but sometimes things don't go ideally. And all of a sudden, you've thrown a box up there that isn't fast enough. We've had something similar happen to us where we put it in production. It's like, that's not quite fast enough. We kind of expected it to be a little better. And now what do we do? And it's just like we don't really have like a super solid answer now.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. We need more. I mean, at some point we just need more resources.
More hardware.
Yeah.
Because we kind of, I mean, I don't know. It seemed like on paper it was going to be plenty of horsepower, and then in actual production, and maybe the cloud provider isn't really giving us quite what the spec says they were. Because I feel like if we ran that same workload on physical hardware, it would be faster.
It's a good
question. The same
question.
specs, right?
The same specs on physical hardware.
So there's that. There's that variability too when you're on
someone else's computers.
Yeah. Oh.
Yeah, that's interesting. One other thing I thought was funny from this is they also started running into issues when they ran out of PIDs on the system.
Sure.
Right? And
it's eventually going to happen.
It's eventually going to happen, yeah. So it's another one. This is just a fun, good article to check out if you are going to run any large number of containers, and it points you to some nice little kernel values you can tweak and tune that you might need.
It's quick, too.
Yeah, right.
Where do people find that, Wes? Where would I find links for this week's episode?
Oh,
like that microphone we talked about.
Like that microphone. Well, you can go on over to coder.show, specifically coder.show/369 for this week's episode. But you'll also find ways to get in touch over at you just hit the contact button. And the easiest way to make sure you always get fresh Coder Radio is, of course, just subscribe. You know, we're on all the apps. We're pretty much everywhere.
Mm-hmm. That's true. Really, that's where the show notes are. Really, is in the app too.
Yeah, it's in the apps. We've got like chapters and stuff too, so you can skip right to your favorite part of the show if you only have a little bit of time.
Those are pretty sweet.
Yeah, they are.
I do like those a lot, especially like when I'm going back to like, what stupid thing did I say like a year ago?
Right. Yeah, it's super great for just trying to reference like, oh yeah, which mic did Chris say?
Yeah, there you go.
Pop right over there.
Huh.
Yeah. Now, of course, you can also just go to jupiterbroadcasting.com where we've got a whole other selection of fine programs.
Can people find you on the Twitter?
Yeah, they can. At Wes Payne. And I think you're there, too.
I am. At Chris LAS, Linux Action Show. How retro is that?
That's crazy.
Tweet me your ideas for a new end of handle.
Right, we'll spruce the whole thing up.
Yeah, fresh it up for the new year.
I think Joe probably votes Chris Land.
We'll see what Mr. Dominic says when he comes back.
Yeah, we'll see. So do stay tuned. Well, we do this show live this week. It was a little late maybe, but don't worry. Go to jupiterbroadcasting.com/calendar. You can find out when we are here live. We'd love to have you join.
Mm-hmm.
Until then, we'll see you next episode. Hey, yo. That was Coder Radio. Thanks for joining us, guys.
We have not nearly enough titles.
Oh, I'm sure, yeah.
I'm just saying.
jbtitles.com. Help us out.
New tricks. Gonna open up the door, get a little airflow.
Yeah.
Airflow.
It's warm over here in the Pacific Northwest.
This is when it warms up. This is it. It's always August. You make it through August, and you've made it through the warm patch.
Yeah, that's
when you say VB, you mean VirtualBox? It's sort of like the difference between an Audi and a Volkswagen. Is that fair? Or like a Lexus and a Toyota?
Yeah, okay. Yeah, seems right.
Being that you're a Toyota driver and I'm a Volkswagen driver.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, it's perfectly functional. It'll definitely get you from here to there. But one is like a premium product, and one is like one of the many products that a large corporation makes.
Yep.
Not that that's not true for both.
Well, there's just different levels of investment in the outcome.
I have a soft spot for VMware Workstation. I actually just really like the VMware Workstation product. I like it. I like it. So, but it is, it seems so silly now in 2019 when you. That was seriously the ICQ. Uh-oh. Did I just seriously hear that? That's amazing. In 2019, when you have virtualization support built into your OS kernel.
Right. Yeah, we have great open source virtualization already.
Like, kind of.
Why?
Yeah, and you're always going to not quite be as close to the metal as you want. And in virtualization, the closer to the metal, the better, in my opinion. And even if VirtualBox uses kernel optimizations, it's not the VM that's built into the kernel. So at this point, I would just use GNOME boxes or Virt Manager, or I would use the Hyper-V shit.
Yeah, there you go. Hyper-V's not too bad.
Yeah, it's fine. It's totally fine. It's just that I can't stand Microsoft UI. But
no, gross. No, they're still stuck in the old management days and just.
Really, it's only Mac OS where you really got to worry about this. But there you've got, I forget what they call, Fusion, VMware Fusion.
Yeah.
Which is a really good product, which is the best. Parallels is fine, and then VirtualBox is adequate. Basically in that order. So VMware Fusion's the best, Parallels is fine, and VirtualBox is adequate. And then you've got, there's like even a port of Beehive.
Yeah, Xhive. Right.
Mm-hmm. So, but if I was on Linux, I just absolutely would just use GNOME boxes or Virt Manager.
Virtualization.
All right, jbtitles.com.
Let's get our voting on. Old Man Embraces Cloud. Something tells me Mike would like that title.
New cloud tricks. New cloud, new tricks. Time to try something new.
Yeah, that's not bad. That's not bad. Oh. What are we talking about today? All kinds of things. Podman, containers. Non-technical folk. And browser extensions. Is there some way to combine like browser extensions and like learning new stuff?
Which conversation did you think was better? Which one did you think?
Learning new stuff, probably. Some about containers.
You really got to be on like the titles thing, and then you need a couple of people to get a couple of titles rolling early, and then it makes all the difference.
It really does, yeah.
That's the formula.
You gotta, because you need to get it. The whole point is it's like a contest, right?
Yeah,
so
and people got to be thinking about it. They got to be in that mindset while they're listening, and they got to be like, "That was a line."
Because the best ones are all the little lines that you forget the second you say them.
jbtitles.com.
Go vote. Everything in a box.
I do kind of like the suggestion of touring KPIX.
Oh yeah, that'd be fun.
Is that what it is, KPIX?
KEXP.
Not even close.
Yeah, but I knew what you meant. Right?
I appreciate that a lot.
That's what matters.
That's why I like US.
Get translate. Yeah, that'd be fun.
That would be fun.
The KOW is doing like a series where they're like the local NPR station where they're like just having their journalists do like talks or stuff. So they had a couple from the people who were podcasting, but they were like sold out immediately. I know. By the time I'd seen it, I was like, oh man, I'd go to that.
I'd totally
right?
go to that.
Keep my eye out, see if they do it again.
Old Man Embraces Cloud, New Cloud Tricks, Overhead in the Clouds. Oh, come on. Really, guys?
Yeah.
The votes we got, like each person voted for their own title.
Mm-hmm.
Hadia, if you're available, we could use a impartial judge. From just a...
I wish I had got to say it in the show, but there was like a good quote from one of this one where it was one of the advice in that thing we covered, the non-technical part was, thinking is working too.
Hey, do you like any of these as a podcast title?
I say Old Man Embraces Cloud.
You gotta enunciate.
Say it like you're excited.
Old Man Embraces Cloud.
He's so old.
Oh, is that you?
Oh, yeah.
You know what Jackie's first impression of me was after the Friday stream? You didn't tell me Chris was old.
Jackie.
Am I getting old, babe?
Just around the gray hair.
Yeah, there's more gray, huh?
Silver
Although
fox.
I feel like I've had gray for a while now.
Yeah.
Just since you met me.
Yeah, just about the time I met you,
Right, yeah.
actually.
Things got interesting.
About the time, it was probably, to be fair, it probably was triggered around the divorce. And you just came along later, my hair had grown out. So, old man embraces cloud, is that what we're going with?
I think we have to.
People hate it when I call myself old. People that are older than me.
Yeah, of course.
They get offended by it.
To be clear, we're talking about a proverbial old man here.
Oh, oops, I have my Google Docs in VI mode. No, you can't do that. You can't do that.
You know,
That'd
we've
be
hardly
sweet, though,
talked
wouldn't
about that. I've talked about, what's it called?
What?
Cody MD? Is that
Who
what it's
talked
called?
about it?
No, we just hardly have mentioned it.
Oh, no. No, we haven't.
But you can do it there.
Do you think we should be talking about it?
I don't know.
I think they're about to rename the project.
Yeah, there was something going on there.
So when they
right?
rename the project, maybe we talk about it. But, there's just other people that have talked about it, so I feel like it's not our thing.
That's true.
But we could still talk about it.
Right.
We probably should talk about it. We should probably make it a pick.
Yeah, and I feel like we've given it some space, right? Like, it's not like we're...
Yeah, all right. We should, when we make the doc, throw that in there in the picks, because
Okay.
I won't remember that, but
Yeah.
that's a good one.
Maybe we can get a little more details, too, about, like, what's happening there. When's the rename?
Can we
What's
find
the
out?
history? Yeah.
Well, what do you think? Is that going to work?
Old man embraces cloud?
I was trying to do a play on Old Man Yells at Cloud.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I think it's
that,
good.
that works?
I think so.
I don't love it, but...
Yeah, I mean, you're the old man, so of course not. Overhead in the clouds. Learning new things. Staying fresh cloud. Fixing it when it's broken.
Get her?
Learning you're busted. Old and busted.
Have you ever used Gitter?
Sounds familiar. Oh, it's like the Git chat thing, right? Yeah. Or, well, whatever. Open source instant messaging chat room system.
Oh, God, I'm getting all stressed out now. Another chat platform. Oh, God, I'm getting hot flashes.
See, this would be good in the show.
Ooh, I'm getting hot flashes.
Woo! Sign in to start talking.
Oh, God, another fucking chat platform. No.
Hey, man, they got Linux. They have a 32-bit Linux binary.
Is it Electron?
I don't know. Let's
Come on,
let's
you
go
know
see.
it is.
It probably is. It's a 97 megabyte deb.
For a chat client? Dude,
You know what's bad? You know what's bad?
What?
I thought that was small.
It's, I mean, when you consider it could be an IRC room, right? It could just be an IRC room.
It could, yeah. Hey, don't make me go check to see what if I install Quassel, it's going to, like, get all the KDE dependencies.
Cloud not proud. That's pretty good.
That is pretty good.
Old ways, new tricks. God, we gotta get another jam session like this.
Yeah,
we need
do.
another one.
We do. Geez, that was a request.
Is he listening?
I don't know. He was listening earlier. Sometimes he listens.
Oh, geez, we need titles, man.
When he's not sick of us. Which
I wouldn't be able to listen to us all the time, to be honest with you. I mean, he just got off like a 2-hour meeting with us.
Yep. And he's doing a show with us tomorrow.
Oh, God, it's too much us.
It's a lot of us, yeah.
Woo. All right, chat room. Thank you, guys.
Yeah, we're going to get out of here and meditate.
Yeah. Actually, I'm going to go punish my Raspberry Pi a little bit.
Yeah, I'll put it through the paces.
Yeah.
Woo.
Should be good unplugged tomorrow.
Yeah, oh yeah. We're excited. We're working hard.
Thanks for having me, Mr. Payne.
Oh yeah, thanks for stepping in. Mr. Dominic will be back soon, so don't worry. Just stay tuned for the next episode of Coder Radio. And join us live for Linux Unplugged tomorrow, 2 p.m. Pacific, if you can make it. We'll see you there. Sassing us, cheese? That's what you're doing?